All right. Good evening, everybody. This is Tech Thursdays, episode 121. We're going to get started on time, surprisingly, this week at the top of the hour. So I don't have a whole lot planned. Like I said last week, there are no major hardware releases to talk about. So it's really going to be more about use case on this evening here. So we're going to talk about desktop in particular, like how you can leverage your computer in other ways besides just playing games. Because I think one thing that I've noticed in talking to a lot of people when it comes to consumer hardware, oftentimes the gaming benchmarks typically seem to reign supreme. And as a result, people seem to overlook what their PC can be used for outside of gaming. That being said, gaming is a very important use case, a very common use case, I'll say, for the consumer desktop space. Last week we talked about Threadripper. So the Threadripper non-pro was a week ago, and then 2 weeks ago now was Threadripper Pro. So we're kind of slowly easing our way back into the mainstream desktop segment. And with that, we're going to go ahead and discuss some of the key things that have come out in recent news articles, or rumors, I should say. So a lot of the discussion is around the quote-unquote double X3D or the dual X3D Ryzen CPU that's rumored to exist, but might not actually exist. So we'll probably talk about that because people have been asking me about that. And we'll also talk about GPUs because it seems like every week we have to talk about GPUs no matter what, even though there's really no new GPUs in the foreseeable future for the next 3 months or so. But we'll talk about GPUs because people always ask me about that. So how's everybody doing? Did you get the replacement? That's supposed to arrive Saturday. So I've not yet received that. It was shipped to me though. So actually, I will mention, I am quite impressed with MSI's RMA because I expected 3.5 weeks turnaround time, but it took the part like 3 days to get to them last week, and then they shipped it to me like 2 days ago. So it's in transit now, I think. So yeah, they only had it for like 3 days. I guess they tested. I sent them a bunch of like log files that I had to show them the problem. So I'm pretty sure all they did was just pull a new one and send me the new one. So we'll see. It has a different serial number. They shipped me a serial number that's different from the one that I sent them. So it's definitely either a refurb or a new one. The dynamic dashboard, the LED display, it was going bad. So if you tuned into the gaming live streams, what weekend was that? That was not last weekend, but the weekend prior to that. So that would have been like the 26th of July. If you were tuning into the gaming live stream, I think we were streaming Elden Ring Night Rain, and every few minutes or so, there'd be like a USB disconnect sound, then a reconnect sound. It was very noticeable. A lot of people noticed it on stream. And I found out that every time it disconnected, and I actually had the camera on my computer so people could see the computer, every time the USB disconnect sound happened, the dynamic dashboard literally went black. It like turned off and then turned back up. It would basically disconnect, reset, come back, work for a while, then disconnect again, then reconnect. So it was definitely the dashboard. I pulled the dashboard off, turned back on the computer, and no more disconnect sound. So it was definitely the Easy Bridge is what they call it. That's the official name for it. The dynamic dashboard is just the display, but the actual module with the magnets is called the Easy Bridge from MSI. So, yeah, that was kind of annoying on such an expensive motherboard and have to RMA like a part of it. Thankfully, I only had to send them that specific thing. I kept the entire motherboard and only shipped them the Easy Bridge. Is Battlefield 6 even out yet? Isn't it just like a Battlefield 6 beta testing? I think we talked about this yesterday. When is the beta test available? It says the beta test will be available August 9th through 10th. So it's not even available right now, according to Steam. How do you play Battlefield 6? Where did you get it from? It says Battlefield 6 open beta available August 9th through 10th and 14th through 17th. Oh, with early access 7 through 8. How do you get early access? It says early access August 7th through 8th. Preload begins August 4th. How do you get that? Wait, the EA app? Oh, the EA app already has it? What I'm reading is from the Steam page. So you're using the EA app then? You're not using Steam? Maybe that's how you're doing it. Okay. Well, there's a couple things that we could talk about, like PS6 performance estimate and the Radeon AI Pro. Let me see what else. There's not a lot of stuff to talk about. Oh, there is that one chip that has like two. Where is it? It's like dual CCD or something. Finally, yeah, this thing. So supposedly, I guess we'll talk about this first. So apparently, I mean, this is a rumor, so I don't know if this is real or if this will actually be a real product, but people kept asking me to talk about this. So apparently AMD has a 16 core, so this will be a Ryzen 9, 9000X3D CPU with 192 megabytes of L3 cache and 200 watt TDP. So it basically means that they have both CCDs equipped with the 3D V cache underneath the CCD. Now, I'm just going to repeat what I said on one of the gaming streams that we did earlier this week, for those that didn't watch that. Basically, I said that the only way that this could have any sort of advantage over the 9950 X3D is if AMD introduces some kind of hardware scheduler, kind of like what Intel has with their Threadripper, something that lives outside of the operating system and is able to communicate to it through a UEFI-like API or something that Windows or Linux or whatever can tap into to basically schedule the threads. Because there's a reason why AMD made the 9950 X3D the way they made it, and that is due to cache coherency and thread scheduling. That's like the main reason why only one CCD has the 3D V cache, because if you put both of them, if you equip 3D V cache on both of them, now what you've done is you've made the L3 cache so large, and keep in mind that it's still a shared cache, that if a core on CCD0 needs to access something that gets put in the cache, the L3 cache, on CCD1, then that incurs a latency penalty. So that completely defeats the purpose of having all that extra cache on the second CCD because of cache coherency. So you lose the benefit of having it isolated. Also, you lose the benefit of having the non-3D CCD, the one that doesn't have the extra cache, being able to clock to 5.7 gigahertz on the boost speed. Because if you introduce 3D cache, now you've got more silicon there, it's stacked, so your power density is going to be higher, your temperatures are going to be higher. As a result, you're not going to be able to clock as high as you can when you do not have the 3D V cache. So that's why the 9950X3D is literally like the best CPU in the consumer mainstream segment, because it gives you, like AMD always said, the best of both worlds. You get the highest clocked CCD, and you get the quote-unquote gaming-focused CCD. So with this, you lose the high clock CCD in favor of two gaming CCDs, but without some sort of really good thread scheduler that keeps games on one CCD and not both. Because like, even if you put both, okay, let me now remember what I wanted to say. So if a game scales above 8 cores, then in theory, this CCD or this second CCD having 3D cache could perform better than the 9950X3D. However, that requires that the game has the threads scheduled in such a way that whatever is using core number 9 or 10 or 12 or whatever doesn't have the cache on the other CCD. You see what I'm saying? So you don't want to cross over, because that defeats the advantage of having all the extra cache. So it really comes down to how good is the thread scheduler in Windows, how good is it at handling almost what should be a NUMA-aware type of architecture, which you can actually configure this in the BIOS to be a NUMA-style CPU. Not a lot of people know how to do that. Maybe I should make a video on how to do that. This is something that was never really talked about. The last time NUMA was brought up in the CPU space was back in the days of the first generation Threadripper, or maybe the Zen Plus, like the Threadripper 2000 series, way back in 2018. So since then, no one's really talked about that. But because you have a dual CCD CPU, you can technically go into the BIOS and turn this into a, what do they call it? It's non-uniform memory setup. So it's basically, I forget what the BIOS terminology is. There's a specific name in the BIOS that you do. It's like per channel versus something. I forget what it's called, but it's like some weird word in the BIOS. And I remember doing it on my Threadripper 2950X, and that vastly improved gaming performance on the old Threadripper, because what it did was it made Windows 10 become aware that, oh, there's actually almost like two CPUs on this computer. I should probably use one of them first before I start using the second one. So that's basically what that does. You can actually do that to a Ryzen 9 CPU in the BIOS. You can basically go into the BIOS and make it such that the CPU is presented to the operating system as two CPUs. In this case, it will be a non-uniform memory architecture, or a NUMA-based CPU, as opposed to a UMA, or uniform memory architecture CPU. So that is something that you can actually do with a Ryzen 9. Now, you cannot do this, obviously, with a Ryzen 7, because a Ryzen 7 only has one CCD. So it really has to have more than one CCD. Now, a Threadripper, these modern Threadrippers are even more interesting, because they have, at minimum, 4 CCDs. So you can go into the BIOS and set it up to appear as either 2 CPUs or 4 CPUs. So it's kind of interesting how it has that much flexibility. But anyway, going back to this, I don't see the need for a dual 3D Vcache CPU. I don't really think this will solve anything, not without some kind of firmware-based thread scheduler, which AMD currently doesn't have. Unless this thing magically has that, I don't see a reason for this product to exist, at least for customers to purchase. This is probably this post on Twitter says new Granite Ridge CPU on the way. The thing is, what are they looking at here? Are they looking at what was an engineering sample that's not actually going to go to market? Like, there's too many unknowns here, and I don't really think this is going to become an actual product. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't know who would buy this. What's the use case? It's not really going to change gaming performance. It's not really going to change. If anything, it'll make most productivity tasks slightly worse, but it could actually make AI workloads on the CPU better because of the extra cache. So it could be a useful product. Now that I think about it more deeply, this already exists on Threadripper, or not Threadripper. This exists on Epic in the data center. So it could actually exist. But what it could be is, what we could be looking at is a Epic-based CPU that is AM5 socket-based. Meaning that if this exists, now that I think about it, yeah, that actually makes a lot more sense. So this could exist, but it will be sold as an AM5 CPU with the Epic name, meaning it is meant for low density, very spread out data center type environments. So basically cloud hyperscaler environments that don't need a whole lot of core density per socket, so they can get away with like 16 cores, but they want to do a lot of cache. So this could exist, guys. So now I actually rethinking this, I can see this existing, but it will not be a Ryzen CPU. It will be an Epic CPU on AM5, which means it will be very expensive. It'll be a very expensive 16 core, because it will come with the same sort of features that the Epic CPUs have for remote system management and all those kind of like IT backdoor things that they use to be able to manage them, like IMI, all that stuff. So that's probably what this is going to be. I'm real curious to know, like, what sort of motherboards. I guess this will be supported by like a super micro server motherboard for AM5, you know, like that kind of thing. So let me see if is there even a AM5 Epic? Let's see. Is it this? Yeah, this kind of thing. AMD Epic 4005. Although wouldn't it be like 5000? Well, maybe. Okay. Yeah, so it would be Zen 5 based in AM5 socket with the dual 3DV cache. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, it could exist, but it's not for gamers. It's not for gamers. It'll be very expensive. It'll be Epic. It'll be an Epic based CPU, most likely. Yeah. That makes a lot more sense now that I think about it. It'll be 4000 series, Zen 5, dual CCD, meant for data center. It will not be sold at Micro Center. It will not be sold. Maybe you can buy it on Newegg, but you cannot buy it at Micro Center. You cannot buy it at Best Buy. You cannot buy it from Mind Factory. I mean, it's going to be sold into SIs, into like data center, like Dell and HP and those guys. Yeah, it'll probably be one of these. Now that I think about it. Yeah, okay. So that's what it is. That makes a lot more sense because it's meant for AI. Will it support X670? Probably not. I mean, does X670E support Epic today? I mean, I don't think it does. So I think the answer is no. That's a good question, but I don't think it will. I mean, the easiest way is to go look at go look and see if it supports any Epic CPUs today. Let's see what it's got. Ryzen. I don't see any Epics on here. Epic, nothing. So yeah, no, it will not work on X670E. It's meant for data center. It's meant for AI. Let's just put it that way. It's meant for AI. You'd have to have like a super micro AM5 type of motherboard. I'm pretty sure super micro AM5. Yeah. These are the things that will support it. This sort of thing. Micro cloud servers powered by AMD Epic using 4005. Yeah, this thing right here supports it. If you got something like this from Supermicro, yeah, that is what I'm thinking of. This is the sort of thing that will take it. Yeah, it'll be a 4005 SKU because 4004 is Zen 4, 4005 is Zen 5. So yeah, this is the sort of box that will support this dual CCD thing. I will get to the bottom of this in 2 weeks. I will know for sure if this thing will exist. And if it does, I will find out 100% if this is going to be an Epic product or a Ryzen product. Most likely, it is an Epic product. No, Epic is above Threadripper. Epic is the top. Epic is the top. Now, the thing about Epic, though, Epic exists across multiple sockets. So you can buy an AM5. You can buy a AM5 form factor Epic CPU, which is the 4005 series. It is definitely above Threadripper, but it has a wider range of where it exists in terms of socket form factors, is what I'm saying. So it goes Epic, Threadripper Pro, Threadripper, and then Ryzen, in that order. I mean, it used to, for a while, AMD still had Athlon as a brand. Athlon was at the way bottom. It's weird because Athlon used to be, back in the day, Athlon competed with Pentium in terms of the brand names, back when CPUs had names. But then Athlon got downgraded because of Ryzen, and then because it used to be like what, Celeron versus Sempron and Pentium versus Athlon. Now, well, then for a long time it was Athlon versus like Celeron because Sempron went away. So So this could exist, but it's not meant for gamers. Yeah, a lot of the stuff that's coming out, that's what I've realized. Most of the hardware that is coming out now is not meant for gamers. It's meant for like AI workloads, data centers, enterprise customers, hyperscalers, all that kind of stuff. You know, the companies, the people who buy service contracts for like 3, 5, or 7 years. 3, 5, or 7 years. I wonder where that came from. Okay, so Supermicro, if you want one of those, you'd have to get it through Supermicro, but there's really no reason to. And most likely, the cores will clock slower because Epic doesn't really clock very high. And that's what I was saying earlier. I was like, if they do dual 3D V-cache, they're not going to run high clock speeds. You're going to lose the single thread advantage you get with that 5.7 boost on that CCD1. So anyway, okay, so that covers this one. I wanted to cover this because people kept asking me about it, and I was like, it's not going to exist for gamers. And then I thought it was a rumor, and then I think about it, I'm like, it might actually exist, but it's going to be for data centers. So that makes a lot more sense. Okay, so we deciphered that thing, the 192 megabyte L3 cache. That'll most likely be an Epic CPU for AM5, which needs to go in a professional motherboard that's meant for a server. All right. The other thing is the AMD Radeon AI Pro R9700. This is probably the best AMD GPU that's going to launch this year. If we're being honest, this is basically a 9070 XT with double the VRAM. So this thing has 32 gigabytes of VRAM. So depending on how this is priced, this is going to be a really good deal for people who want to do AI stuff on the cheap and are okay with using things like Linux and not having access to just running everything natively on Windows. Now, that'll eventually change. AMD has been saying that for the last 2 years, and now ROCm is supposed to come out officially on Windows at the end of this year. So like in December or something, ROCm will finally be publicly on Windows. Right now, it's kind of like a beta thing where it's like, it may or may not work, and it only supports a specific subset of GPUs. Namely, you got to have, I think, RDNA 3 and RDNA 4, and you can't use anything older. Maybe RDNA 2 works, but again, it's unsupported. So if something is broken, if there's a bug, too bad, no one's going to help you. So that is the bad thing about the current ecosystem for AMD on Windows when it comes to AI, and that's the reason why NVIDIA continues to be so dominant in the AI space. Now, if you're on Linux, basically everything, pretty much almost everything you can do with an NVIDIA GPU for AI, you can do with a Radeon GPU. There are some exceptions that I have discovered. However, in most AI workloads, like whether we're talking LLMs that are like chat, agents, image generation, all kinds of like, create so-and-so document, like create me a PDF file report of so-and-so, whatever the data, here's the data. Like AMD GPUs, NVIDIA GPUs, both of them can do that just fine. There really isn't much of a difference on Linux today. There's some corner cases where still a lot of the LLMs are mostly CUDA. So if you don't have an abstraction layer or translation into ROCm, then you can't really use that model. You kind of have to go and find something else. So there's still some drawbacks with using AMD's Radeon products for AI, but it keeps getting better and better every couple of months. So that's something that I have noticed, and eventually you will be able to just get a Radeon card, be on Windows, and whatever LLM you want to use, you can translate it into ROCm and it'll work as though it was on NVIDIA. So that is kind of the current state of AI. But that being said, the AI Pro R9700 is probably the best value for AI because of that 32 gigabytes of VRAM. One thing that I have discovered earlier this week when I was doing a bunch of research and messing around with AI related stuff on my Threadripper system is that a lot of these AI apps, that if you're trying to run them locally on your machines, so you're not leveraging any cloud-based service thing, you're literally just doing everything on your own, it's all free, it's on-prem, not cloud. What I keep running into is the VRAM limitations. So pretty much VRAM, it's like 24 gigs of VRAM is kind of like the minimum these days for AI, for like high-end AI workloads. And that's like minimum spec. So every time I try to run these AI things and they're like, oh, you have low VRAM, you have 24 gigs of VRAM. And I'm like, 24 gigs of VRAM is low end? What? So it's like 24 gigs of VRAM. Yes, an RTX 4090 is considered low-end entry level for AI in 2025. Likewise, the 7900 XTX, that's AMD's 24 gig card, that's also considered low-end. And that one's even worse because it, like on Windows, you lose access to a lot of stuff because you literally don't have CUDA on the Radeon card. So you got to go be on Linux to leverage the Radeon card to its full potential. So most people, most normies, whatever you want to call them, they're on Windows. They don't know how to use Linux. They don't know how to do command line. They barely know what they're doing as it is. So, the people on Windows, most of those people, they're just the gamers who, frankly, have no idea what they are doing. So they're trying to get at AI. They're lost. They don't know. Yeah, so it's not a good position to be in currently if you don't have VRAM and if you only have an AMD card. Now, if you have an NVIDIA card and you're on Windows, just because you have the NVIDIA card doesn't mean you know what you're doing. So you could still be completely lost and confused and dazed and have no idea what's going on. But anyway, we're just going to move on. This card, I think it's a great value. I really wish it was sold on like Newegg or something, because as soon as this thing was announced and as soon as I learned that 24 gigs of VRAM is minimum spec, I immediately started looking for one of these, to how to get one of these things. And sure enough, it's only available via system integrators. So you cannot buy this from Micro Center. You cannot just go on Newegg and order one of these, unfortunately. So eventually, these will trickle down into the DIY space. So, but you would have to wait probably until the end of this year, if not early next year. It's several months before you'll be able to get one of these as a standalone product from a place like Newegg. So, as it is right now, the typical AI desktop setup is either one card with a lot of VRAM, and I'm talking like minimum 24 gigs or more, or up to 4 graphics cards, each with high VRAM. Professional cards like this, because you need them to be dual slot, you need them to be blower style, so they don't overheat. This is the reason why the blower style design is the absolute best design for graphics cards, and it always will be, because it is the most practical. You don't have to worry about any of the heat being dumped into your case. Every single one of these GPUs are 300 watts of electricity. So the 4 of them running at full load, that is already 1,200 watts of electricity. And Threadripper, as you can see right here, is another 350 watts. So you literally need at minimum a 1,600 watt power supply, if not dual power supplies, which a lot of the Threadripper motherboards support dual power supplies. So this is what it means to be true high-end. This isn't peasant class stuff. Like, this is very, very expensive, super high-end. It's all dedicated to AI or whatever, productivity. I mean, it doesn't have to be AI. It could be like somebody is working on the next Marvel movie or whatever, or some Unreal Engine 5 game, or maybe Rockstar bought one of these to set up a cluster in Kubernetes to emulate online GTA 6 multiplayer and test that in a virtualized environment. Maybe that's what they bought one of these for. So I don't know. There's like a whole bunch of things, and that kind of leads us. That's actually a great segue into what I wanted to talk about on the stream, and that is other use cases for your desktop other than playing games, because not everybody has a desktop computer in 2025. Most people use mobile phones and laptops and tablets, and very few people actually use like tower-based desktop form factor PCs. So the people who I talk to, a lot of people that I talk to that I work with don't even have a desktop computer in their house. Like some of them haven't even had a computer. Like they have laptops, yes, but a actual tower computer, like a traditional desktop computer, like a old school PC. They consider it old school. Yeah, that's kind of weird. But to us, it's weird. Like to the enthusiasts, it seems kind of weird. But that's because we're kind of like we kind of do this as a hobby, right? Building your computer, it's kind of like a hobby. That's a large part of what this channel covers. But to the average person, the average individual out there, they don't actually own desktop computers. So when you talk to them about it, they're like, what? Like, what? You got one of those? Why do you have one of those? Like you got one of that's cool. It's like, oh, that's cool. You have like an old school PC. It's like, is that retro? like they don't really understand, so there's multiple different avenues of this type of thing. Like you can be a hobbyist, a tech enthusiast. You can be someone who literally uses your computer for work. So you have to have typically some kind of high-end professional system. At the bare minimum, you're on a Ryzen 9 CPU or better, a Threadripper or a Threadripper Pro, or you're on an Intel Xeon, or you're on like an old Intel HEDT platform, which is really, really old by today's standards, or Sapphire Rapids or Emerald Rapids or something along those lines. That's pretty much what people who actually use their computers for professional work, that's the sort of systems that they have. Some people can get by with a typical mainstream desktop computer, whether that's something like this, the Ryzen 9 9950X3D, or the non-X3D variant like a regular Ryzen 9950X. Those are excellent choices for people on strict budgets building a computer for work. There is also the Intel Core Ultra, which we have talked about. So Intel Core Ultra is a pretty decent alternative to the Ryzen 9 CPUs. But most people that are real serious about running a business are probably going to be using something like an AMD Threadripper because it offers them no compromise in terms of what they want to connect into their computer. If they want to run a whole bunch of SSDs, and when I say a whole bunch of SSDs, I mean like 8 SSDs minimum, if not more, they need to be on Threadripper for that. There's just so much stuff you can do. Multi-GPUs, as shown here. You can do like 4 graphics cards if you want. And guess what? All 4 of them are running at full X16 lanes. None of this bandwidth sharing. There's no such thing as bandwidth sharing on a Threadripper platform. That is one of the beautiful things about Threadripper, and that is the reason why it is a true high-end desktop. It is not a mainstream computer that has to worry about, if I plug this SSD in, is my GPU going to be running at X8? Or if I plug these 2 SSDs in, my GPU runs at X8, but now I can't use the X8 slot underneath it because of the SSDs. There's none of this nonsense like, I can't do this, or I have to pick and choose one but not the other. But, Threadripper doesn't play that way. Everything works.
Despite the rigs I have, I just to bring a MacBook to meetings. I don't want to flaunt around with a 4090 laptop with a huge power brick in a meeting.
Well, that's different though. You're talking about a meeting. I'm talking about people that are using the computer to create things, they're generating revenue for their business somehow. They're either developing a product, or they're running a business, or they're doing something with like high frequency trading or whatever they're doing. So that's completely different. I mean, I'm the same way. I'm not going to walk in to a meeting with some thick gamer laptop. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, I'm with you there. No, you show up to the meeting with an Ultrabook or a MacBook, like you said, like that. You're spot on there. But that's the thing. You got to have different devices for different environments, right? So, but what I'm talking about here is using the computer for productivity, for work, for doing something that's going to generate revenue. Not playing Elden Ring Night Rain, or going into a business meeting. No one's going to drag a thick, heavy 7-pound laptop into a business meeting. I don't know. It's just going to make them look weird, if anything. Or people are just going to think that they're one of those, like it's like a lower level job, like it's someone who's not in the upper management. They're not decision maker. It's sad to say that, but that's the reality. The thinner and lighter the laptop in a meeting, the higher up that individual is in the company, typically. That's typically how it is. The bigger and heavier the laptop, the lower down the totem pole the individual is if they're in the meeting. I mean, it sounds really, really bad to say that, but that is the truth. It is the truth. It is the truth. Anyone who doesn't believe me, they have not worked in enough of these type of companies. Okay. So no, I agree with you there. Yeah. What I personally use, and I haven't actually made a video on that. So the laptop that I use for that sort of thing is a Lenovo ThinkPad, but that's because I've always been using ThinkPads. And I have two, at any given time or any given year, I have two ThinkPads. One is my desktop replacement, which is the heavy laptop, the big 16-inch. And then my other one is like what you just said, the meeting laptop. The one that you go to the meetings. That's the 14-inch, super thin and light, really good battery life, perfect to take onto an airplane and type up the notes and all that stuff. So yeah, I've got two. I've got a ThinkPad T14S and a ThinkPad P15V Gen 3. Actually, I have shown those laptops in some of my videos on the channel. They have been featured in some recent videos. Both of them in particular, have been featured in the video where we talked about USB 4 and the specific use case for USB 4, and that is basically external graphics cards. Imagine showing off rainbow RGB in a business. Yeah, it would be totally inappropriate because it's just distracting. Yeah, it would look weird. Yeah. Yeah, RGB keyboard. Yeah, an RGB keyboard. Taking notes on an RGB keyboard from SteelSeries on like an MSI gaming laptop. MacBook Air is what you need for a meeting. Yeah. I once used to work with somebody who told me he would look around the room in the office and he'd be like, you can tell who does real work in the company based off of what laptop they have. And he was basically trying to say was that the people with the Macs aren't doing like the real work compared to the people with the ThinkPads, because the ThinkPads were typically being used to like log in to remote servers and do all kinds of configuration. Now the thing is, you can do a lot of that on Mac. So it's not like Mac can't do that. Mac actually has a really good terminal so that you can SSH into a lot of remote devices, especially like network devices and things like that. So Mac is quite good, to be honest, for productivity. A lot of people seem to look down on people with Macs because they never use the Mac themselves. But Mac is actually quite good for productivity. It's very streamlined. It is quite intuitive. But the only problem with Mac, what I have found, is when something is not compatible, and anytime you got to go and like dual boot into Windows or run like Windows in a VM, it just adds a whole bunch of extra steps, and then you got to have like the pass through has to work, and sometimes your RDP isn't going to work as a result, depending on like firewall settings. It gets really really messy sometimes with some corner cases. Java is another problem. Like Mac doesn't like Java running, so and some older network devices still require Java for the UI to like actually manage the device. So that can be a huge headache if you're on a Mac. So there are some challenges, and that's the reason why that guy was like, people who have Windows laptops are doing the real work, and the people with Macs are not. That's because he was referring to the corner cases where you can't actually do the thing that you need to do with the Mac. You got to go on to Windows or get in a VM. So, well, anyway. So this thing, unfortunately, it's impossible to get right now, but this is probably a really, really good choice for productivity and AI, hence the name AI Pro. But yeah, eventually it'll show up, but it is kind of lame that it's available only via system integrators. I think what's going to end up happening with GPUs is there's going to be a new segment created for, like right now, there's the gamers and there's the non-gamers. And the difference is the gamers don't want to pay a lot of money for a graphics card. The non-gamers are typically companies that can afford to pay larger prices because they can get economies of scale, because they're going to buy literally hundreds of graphics cards at a time in like one purchase. So they can negotiate discount based off of bulk quantity orders. As a result of that, I think what's going to happen is there will probably be a new segment of graphics cards created where you're going to have cards like this that are somewhat affordable for gamers, kind of. Like if this card is like $1,200, $1,500 as an example, some gamers might pay that much money for a GPU. I mean, look at all the people that bought 4090s, which they cost more than $1,500, and 5090s, that's even worse. So if there's enough people doing that, they're going to keep raising the prices. But what I think is going to happen, and we might see this with the RTX 60 series and whatever AMD's new thing is, they're going to create a segment where if you want a gaming card, it's going to be relatively cheap. The prices will stay as they are, but they're going to be very, very gimped on VRAM. They're just going to not have good amounts of VRAM. And they're going to do that on purpose because they know that VRAM is the king of AI. And they know that the companies are willing to pay the money for the AI GPUs that have the VRAM. So they're going to raise the price of the higher VRAM GPUs. Cards like the 5090. That tier of card is probably going to get even more expensive with the next generation. And they're going to really like split. They're going to split the market. So it's like if you're a gamer, you're going to get your 16 gigabyte GPU and pay like, I don't know, like $2,000 or $1,500 or whatever for your 16 or 20 or 24 gigabyte GPU. And then if you're a professional, prosumer, AI, small business, big business, whatever, you can pay $5,000 for your RTX 6090 with like, I don't know, either 32 gigs of VRAM or who knows, 48 gigabytes of VRAM, something like that. And you're okay paying $5,000 because, you know, you're going to order like 100 of them. So you're actually not going to pay $5,000. You're going to pay more like $4,000 or something like that, or $3,800. The more you buy, the more you save. Literally, the thing is, Jensen was not lying when he said, the more you buy, the more you save. The more you buy, the more you save. Because he was not talking to the gamers when he said that. He misspoke. He didn't understand. He forgot that his audience was the gamers and the tech media and the gaming media. He thought he was talking to the companies, the businesses, the people who are going to purchase a whole bunch of graphics cards all at once. So the more they buy, the more they save. The more they buy, the bigger the discount they get. You know, that's who he thought he was talking to when he said that. So the more you buy, the more you save. But that's what they're going to do. They're going to make the 6090 probably be like $5,000. So they're basically going to like cut it off so that the gamers can't get it, even though they desire it. And they're just going to make it so that you gotta have a certain threshold or whatever. And that's basically how it's going to be. I mean, they kind of already did that now with the RTX Pro 6000. You know, that's like $8,500 for like one GPU. And that is so out of reach for the gamers that they don't even pay attention to it. So they look at the 5090. But the thing is that people are starting to think, oh, 5090, 32 gigs of VRAM is a good amount of VRAM for AI, for most AI. Some AI needs more than 32. Like it needs like 48 or 80 or whatever, or 90. But a lot of these AI apps, they can get by with 32 gigs of VRAM. So what I can see happening is next time around, NVIDIA's going to be like, there's a lot of AI customers looking to buy the 32 gig GPU. We need to raise the price on that. We need to raise the price because it's like we need to make it, we need to do what's called a bar raiser. Like you got to move the goalposts, If too many people are buying, raise it up. If people still keep buying, raise it up. And because it's like they can maximize their profit margins by raising it up, they're going to make more money. So just keep raising it up. Raise it up. It's like the carrot on a stick. Oh, you can't. Oh, not quite. Hold on, a little more. $3,000. Nope. 3,500. Nope. 4,000. 4,500. That's what's going to end up happening with the what I call the good GPUs, the ones that actually have good amounts of VRAM. So, and it'll kind of drag everything up a little bit to an extent, but I kind of think next generation, if you're someone who only spends like $500. Yeah, only $500. Yeah, because only $500 is so cheap. Yeah, well, obviously I'm being sarcastic, but if you're someone who only spends, like up to a certain maximum, like 500 or 400 or whatever on a GPU, then it doesn't really affect you that much at the end of the day because you're just gonna buy whatever GPU just falls into that price category. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, where it probably does have some impact is the fact that you used to be able to get a better tier GPU for that amount of money. Whereas now, because they keep moving the goalposts, you're only going to be able to get a GPU that was what would have been a $300 GPU. Now you're paying like $500 for it. You know what I'm saying? That is what's happening. So that's something to be aware of. Now, people who have been PC gamers for a long time, you guys know how it has gotten worse. Like, prices have kind of gotten out of whack over the last couple of generations. It really started with the RTX brand. GTX never had this problem. It was when RTX came out, RTX kind of screwed everybody over. And it's been like that ever since. So, it's been, what is it, like 7 years? 6 or 7 years? Yeah, like 7 years, man. I can't believe it's been that long. Dude, 2080 Ti is like 7 years old. That thing's basically 7 years old. Almost 7 years old, isn't it? Yeah, 2018. Wow. 2080 Ti is so old, it's an ancient dinosaur. Okay. So let's talk about something that is still gaming focused and not so much AI focused. PS6, the PlayStation 6. The performance is estimated to be around the 9070 XT level. Now, the next Xbox is around RTX 5080. And here's the weird part. RDNA 5 has more features than Blackwell. All right, so without reading this article, because I haven't read this article yet, because I just saw the headline. I was like, okay, we're talking about this. So they claim the 9070 XT. So we can actually do some research to determine if this makes sense. So if we go to Tech Power-Ups GPU database, and if we type in PlayStation 4, the original PlayStation 4, Liverpool, with 256 gigabyte or bit, 8 gigs of RAM or GDDR5 RAM, 32 ROMs, 1,152 cores, Sony Computer Entertainment, diffused in Taiwan, made in Malaysia, November 24th, 2013. Now, the reason why I'm highlighting these things, this is going to come back. This is going to play a role. We're gonna shift over to Paint real soon. But let's look if this makes sense. So, this is a I'm looking for the FP16 1.8 teraflop 1.1. So, knowing that, now we look up the HD Radeon 7850 GPU. Yes, AMD, made in Taiwan. So here we have, where is 1.7 T-flops. So it's basically like a PlayStation 4. So this is the graphics card equivalent of the PlayStation 4. So now let's look at the PlayStation 4. We have the number. So now let's find the PlayStation 5. PlayStation 5. PlayStation 5. Oberon. Why is it Oberon Plus? Hold on, find the original one. Yes. PlayStation 5. Oberon. 256-bit bus. 2304 cores. 16 gigs of RAM. This looks very familiar. AMD does these specs a lot in a lot of GPUs, a lot of modern GPUs. So we look at this, November 12, 2020. So actually, I got to bring up Paint now. I'm going to pre-fill some stuff here. November 12, 2020. And then we had, what was the other one? Let me just move this over here so I can look at it on the side. The release of the, not that, where's the PlayStation 4? PlayStation 4 was November 24th, 2013. This is PS4. This is PS5. Okay. This is approximately HD 7850. This one is approximately RX 6700. Approximation. So now we know where they line up. So now we go. So if we go to, go back here. So now all we need to do is plug in the numbers. HD 7850. Pitcairn from 2012. The Pitcairn. Now let's find, this is 100%. Let's go find the RX 6700. Now the 60, oh, wait a minute, what? Okay, hold on. Yes, 6700. The 6700 is basically a, if I can't find it on this list, I'll approximate to 7600 because that's the closest thing. That's the closest. Wait, is that right? No, it's not. This is 7600 XT. 7600 XT, I believe. 578. Hold on, I gotta do a different calculation because it's not on here. So RX 6700. Yeah, this one. This is a PlayStation 5. So that is equal to a 2070 Super or a 1080 Ti, roughly. So a PlayStation 5 is as fast as a 1080 Ti. So if we go here and if we can't find that one, we go find the 1080 Ti. Okay, right here. Oh, 2070 Super 1080 Ti. Okay, so this is it. So here it is, the number. So 500. So PS5 is 517. We'll just say 515% faster. Oh, no, that's not right. 400. 415% faster than PS4. Okay. See? So it's quite a bit faster. The PS5 is 415% faster than the PlayStation 4. So now we need to look at the difference between the PlayStation 5 and the projected PlayStation 6. And that is where that leads us to the article that we were talking about. So if we go here, they're saying that it is around a 9070 XT level. So very simple. All we do is we start from here because they're saying 9070 XT. So from here, we look for 9070 XT. 9070 XT is 251% faster than PlayStation 5. So that's 151%. So that sounds very believable. That sounds very believable considering the PlayStation 5 is 415% faster than the PlayStation 4. So 215% or was it 115? 150? 100 and... Is it really 251? Hold on. Yeah, it's 100. Why is it 200? It's 150% faster. Okay, so the 9070 XT is about 150% faster than the PlayStation 5. And the Xbox, they said, was 5080 level, which would be 200%. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's believable. That is actually believable. That makes a lot of sense, actually. So this is not wrong. This article does not seem wrong at all. It actually seems quite accurate based off of the math. Doing the math using Tech Power Up, we can already determine whether or not this makes sense. And it totally makes sense. So let's see what they say. Leaks suggest that the PS6 has significantly increased the performance. AMD insider Kepler L2 has shared different predictions. According to him, the PS6 will be around the performance level of 9070 XT, AMD's current GPU. However, the next generation Xbox will be slightly more powerful with the Kepler L2 comparing to the 5080. Both consoles will be powered by AMD's RDNA 5, which Kepler 2 reckons will be the largest architectural overhaul since the graphics core next era. Additionally, well, I think what they mean to say is since RDNA 1. Additionally, because RDNA 1 was the largest graphics overhaul since GCN. Additionally, the insider said it will have even more features than NVIDIA's architecture Blackwell. To prove that, the insider linked to several AMD patents. Okay. And they have right here, dense geometry format, which basically means hardware level nanite. Streaming wave coalescer, which is out of order execution. Work group self-launch, which means reduced CPU and GPU front-end bottlenecks. Many improvements to RT cores. which is all of these things. There's like a bunch of them here. They got configurable ray edge testing for convex polygon groups, prism volumes for displaced subdivided triangles, ray tracing of displaced micro meshes using a bounding prism hierarchy, systems and methods for detecting ray intersections with displaced micro meshes. So you can tell that there is a lot of stuff that's going to change next year. Remember what I said on a previous episode of Tech Thursdays. I said that AMD went into the hyperbolic time chamber to train for the cell games. This is what I meant. By using Dragon Ball Z analogies, I am simplifying it for people who do not understand all this technology, so they can simply understand that AMD is like Goku and Gohan training in the hyperbolic time chamber for the Cell games for one more year. That's basically what's happening. And all these things, now that I think about it, it's not just AMD. AMD and Sony together have gone into the hyperbolic time chamber. Because remember, there is Project Amethyst. They have joined forces with the Strategic Alliance to go into the hyperbolic time chamber to train and learn the ways of dense geometry format. Drop and give me 50 intersection testing on dense geometry data using triangle pre-filtering. Learn the techniques. The new Kaioken technique, spill after programming model for the streaming wave coalescer. The Rasengan local launch in workgroup processors. And finally, the Chidori prism volumes for display subdivided triangles. All the techniques. Destructo disc, tri-technique, special beam cannon, super kamehameha. All these things, they're learning all the techniques. They're going in they're training. They're literally training in the hyperbolic time chamber. So, yeah, this is totally believable. The PlayStation 6 is going to be like a 9070 XT, and Xbox Next will be RTX 5080. Because these two graphics cards are almost exactly the same. They're both 16 gigs. Very simple stuff. Very interesting article, actually. This is a very good article. This is the first I've ever seen of these things. But I always knew. I had a feeling. I can sense it. You know, like in Dragon Ball Z, they can sense the power levels of the villains and stuff. Like, oh, they can sense, oh, Frieza, the power is so high. That's a very high power level. You know, like, I could sense intuitively that AMD was far away, training in the hyperbolic time chamber. I didn't know what they were doing. I knew that they were training because I could tell the power level is increasing over time. The power level is slowly going up. They're getting more and more powerful. But I didn't know what they were doing. But apparently this is the sort of stuff that they're doing in the time chamber. They're doing all this. You know, like that's the stuff. This is the actual essence of what's going on. So, like I said, next year will be the end of next year will be the Cell games in the GPU space. So, it's going to be very, very interesting. So that means the prediction for PlayStation 6 is going to be spot on, almost. So, because if we look at this, November 2013, PlayStation 4. November 2020 was PlayStation 5. How many years is that? That's what, like 7 years. What is the thing that I always talk about when it comes to hardware life cycle? Hardware life cycle operates on certain specific years. 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. Once something turns 3 years old, it's middle-aged. Once something turns 5 years old, it is Elderly. Once something turns 7 years old, it's time for it to go away. So 7 years. Sony operates at the maximum number. The maximum number. 7 years. They operate the PlayStation at the 7 years. Now, before someone tries to say, oh, but Sony says 10-year life cycle. 10-year is what they mean when they're referring to the game software development lifespan, which means the platform will be supported to get games for 10 years from the release. That doesn't mean that the platform will live 10 years. The platform will live 7 years, and the successor will be introduced at the 7-year mark. Look at this. So the PlayStation 4 launched in 2013, November. 7 years later, in the midst of the pandemic, PlayStation 5 launched. So what does that mean? That means 7 years. 7 years, you will get PlayStation 6. Once the PS5 hits 7 years old. So, the magic year, holiday 2027. It's right on schedule. Now, what we don't know is the handheld thing, because we know that Sony is going to do some kind of handheld thing. Microsoft's strategy is Xbox everywhere. So Sony's response is going to be a little bit delayed by like a year or two, just because they have to actually build something. Because the difference between Sony and Microsoft in the gaming world, Sony is a hardware company with a platform. Microsoft is a software company with a hardware platform. So they're basically the opposites of each other. And you can see how their strategies have changed to match what they are. Okay. I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to say. Oh, so I guess now what we can talk about is, let's get rid of all of this stuff. So desktop use cases. So what are the things that people can do with their computer once they build their computer? Now, obviously, I'm going to do gaming as like a pre-filled one. But what else? People can use their computer to do other things. You can do AI workloads. You can do productivity apps. So things like video editing. You can do CAD apps design. You can do photo editing. So like programs like Photoshop, Affinity Photo, those things, all of the Adobe things. What else? What else? Here's some more interesting ones. You can actually rent out the compute. Rent out the compute. So things like Salad or Vast.ai. These are examples. These are alternatives of what you can do with the computer. I guess another one would be, not very many people do this anymore. We're definitely not in the market for this, but crypto mining. Crypto mining is something. I'm just going to put it there. I mean, it's a use case for the computer. But I think what has happened is with crypto mining not being very profitable, most people have exited that industry. What I've seen a lot of them do, they start repurposing their computers for rental. Rent out the compute. So what they do is they offer their computer They connect their computer to a service like Salad or Vast, and they basically rent their computer's compute capabilities. So, like, let's say somebody wants to verify their AI model runs with a certain performance level over the network. So they want to test. Not only do they want to test the east-west traffic, but they want to test the north-south traffic. They want to test, like, how does the agent perform over the network. So they can go and they can rent someone's computer to go and spin up a VM and then test their AI model in real time on that computer remotely. Now they're not literally like remotely controlling the computer. What they're doing is they're using the app from Salad or Vast to spin up a virtual machine inside that computer, and then on the VM they spawn their app, their AI app, and then they test the behavior of it in that virtual instance. So that is one thing. And people are actually making money doing this. It's like, you know how people can have rental properties, like rental homes? There are people that are starting to have rental computers. Like they're working on their rentals. Their rentals, like it used to be a lot of this was crypto. It was like mining cryptocurrency, like Ethereum and all the other altcoins. And of course, way back when people used to mine Bitcoin, people don't really mine Bitcoin on actual desktop computers nowadays. They use ASIC miners to do it. So all this compute, all these GPUs, all these random motherboards with so-and-so amounts of memory, this is one way the people who are exiting the crypto space are starting to make money doing that. Now, compared to the way it was in 2017, in 2021, profitability for like renting out compute isn't so great anymore. So you're not really making like a ton of money doing this, but this is one example of how people are using their computer to earn money besides the typical other ways like professional, they have their own business, they have to do photo editing, they got to build like, displays and that kind of thing. So this is more like your typical, like these are the easy ones to list, right? But these are the ones that not everybody really thinks of. So those are some other ones. I guess the other ones would be like game development, or just in general, more broadly, software development. Network management. Network management, meaning you manage a IT environment remotely. You use the computer to do that. 3D modeling. Okay, that's one. Yeah. 3D modeling. Animation. Yeah, that's another one. Okay. Yeah. So there's lots of stuff, because the thing that I've been talking to people that are in the community Patreon, in the community Discord. I've been talking to people in the industry. I've been talking to salespeople, like the guys that work at Micro Center, for example. And the one thing that always comes up is gaming. Like when I ask them, what is the primary driver? Like what is the primary reason these people are coming to Micro Center to build these computers? And they're always like, it's gaming. It's gaming. That's number one. It's always gaming. So that's why right now that it's like, because I was trying to understand why is it that every single person going to Micro Center is buying up either a 9800X3D or a 9950X3D or a 9900X3D, something with an X3D AMD Ryzen with the 3D V-Cache, like this type of CPU. Why is it that everyone's buying this? Because I was like, man, what happened? Everyone's buying up the same type of CPU. No one's buying this type of CPU, the Ryzen 9 with no X3D, and no one's buying this CPU, the Intel Core Ultra Arrow Lake Z890, brand new, well, not brand new, almost 1 year old Intel platform. How come the people don't care? And I'm like, and they told me it's because of gaming. It's like they look at what the Gamers Nexus said, or they look at what the Linus said, and it's like they're recommending the Ryzen for the gamers. So it's like everyone just goes and buys the Ryzen for the gamers, for gaming. And I'm thinking, what is this gaming thing? Like, why is everyone so focused on gaming? Like, don't they do anything else with their computer? Like, it's really just the gaming? And the salespeople are like, man, you'd be surprised. It's like, I don't know. Like, he said, one guy told me, this is very interesting data from Micro Center. He told me that every time they talk to a customer who is trying to build for every customer that comes in and tells them that they're specifically trying to build a productivity based computer, like they don't play any games, they're gonna do like productivity, like CAD design or something software development, like anyone for every one person who comes in and tells the salespeople that is what they're gonna do with the computer, they have 9 people who come in saying they're trying to build it for gaming. So gaming is like 9 out of 10 individuals that are trying to like build a gaming computer, build a computer, like 9 out of 10, 90% of the time, a computer that is going to be built from scratch, meaning buying a bunch of parts and putting it all together yourself, the use case seems to be gaming. So, this is the reason why when somebody does a review on a Threadripper CPU, and I'm talking about Steve from Gamers Nexus, he called out everybody in the video. He said, all you people, I see what you do. You click on the gaming section of the review. You skip to the gaming benchmarks. Even though it's a Threadripper CPU and it's very expensive and it's meant for all this other stuff, people are still focusing on gaming. So gaming, for some reason, commands the lion's share of the use case for having a desktop computer. That seems to be what I've been able to conclude. Because most people that I talk to that don't, so it's like most people that I talk to that do not have desktop computers, but they have laptops, they don't play games. They don't play any video games. They don't know what Elden Ring is. They don't care to know what Elden Ring is. They don't know what Final Fantasy is. Okay, they might have heard of Final Fantasy, or they maybe knew about it when they were a child back in the day, playing on like SNES or something, or N64 or PlayStation 1. You know what I'm saying? So most people, they don't know like why you would have a actual tower computer, because they're like, dude, we're not in the 2000s anymore. Like, what are you doing? Why do you have that ancient giant computer? Like, what's that for? Like they don't understand. They don't understand. But from all the research that I've done in the last month, I have concluded that if somebody has a traditional desktop computer, most likely they play games. Now, they don't have to, not everybody, meaning the people out there who have a desktop computer in their home, but they don't play any games, they are like even more rare than the gamer, because the typical person who I've talked to that has an actual computer tower, they typically play games with the computer. Now, that might not be the only thing that they use the computer for, but if someone has the computer and they don't play the games, they're a really, really rare individual in 2025. That's all I'm saying. I've come to the conclusion that if someone has a desktop computer and they don't play any games, they're a very rare individual. It's like a rare unicorn. You found like an endangered species, very rare person to not play games and have an actual computer, let alone a high-end computer with like super expensive GPUs. You know what I'm saying? So those are even more rare. But yeah, just some interesting anecdotal kind of like case study that I did in terms of trying to figure out like why do people have computers, like actual like discrete computers, not laptops, not tablets, not smartphones, not pre-builds, maybe pre-builds, but it has to be like an actual PC with a tower with monitors connected, or maybe one monitor or more monitors, keyboard, mouse, all that stuff. You don't play games, only chess. But chess is a game though, right? Chess technically is a game. Unless all you're doing is you're letting it run the chess program where it just does the simulate, like it simulates all the moves or generates all the moves that it can make. Maybe that's not what I would consider a game because you're not playing the game. But I don't know. Chess to me seems like it's a game. Last I checked, it was labeled as a game. Lately, F1. Well, but you don't need any hardware. What do you mean? You need hardware to run the chess program. In fact, the chess programs out there can use a lot of hardware. They can scale real well. The chess program can scale better with hardware than most games. Most games can't scale that well with hardware. Up 12th and 13th gen overheated constantly, even playing YouTube. Well, we don't really talk about 13th gen anymore on this channel. 12th gen, yeah. 12th gen's still around. 13th gen doesn't exist anymore. Intel killed that off. I mean, okay, technically it's still around. It has a different name, though. I mean, saying 13th gen... That would be like somebody calling Darth Vader by his original name in, like, Return of the Jedi. Or The Empire Strikes Back. You know what I'm saying? It would be, like, so out of place. It just sounds so weird to hear someone say that. But we don't mention 13th gen. That's like going up to Darth Vader and literally saying Anakin. You know, like, who would dare do that? Who would dare do that? Risk getting, like, force choked, you know what I'm saying? Like, what? Whoa, that's weird. Okay, so let me see, what other, there's really nothing else to talk about. This is going to be a short episode of Tech Thursdays, unless people have any tech-related questions they want to ask. Oh, Roger Kodori is back. Oh man, Roger Kodori is back. He's back in action. Oh man, this is like it's like a character that you haven't seen from. You know, it's like Game of Thrones. It's like the king who died in like season 1 coming back in like season 4. So it's like, whoa, this guy's been gone for a long time, and all of a sudden he's back. Roger Kodori is back in the GPU business. He just can't get enough of it. Unveils new startup Oxmic Labs. That's a weird name. Oxmic Labs, bringing 500 years of combined experience via world-class GPU and AI architects. atoms to 8. Oh, is this quantum? Is this like a quantum thing? Roger Godori begins his new GPU startup, rebuilding the entire GPU ecosystem from scratch, prioritizing software first. That's a good idea. Strategy to enable unmodified Python-based CUDA apps to run on non-NVIDIA hardware. Okay, he's doing what I suspect a lot of those Chinese startups in China are doing, where they're basically taking NVIDIA's stuff and they're just going to like make it work on their own stuff. Roughly 2 years after retirement from Intel, the ex-chief GPU architect, who has previously worked for AMD as the SVP, senior vice president, and chief GPU architect in the graphics department, is now on his new venture of producing AI GPUs from scratch. Raja founded a new startup called Oxmic Labs, which will now leverage the experience of world-class GPU AI architect veterans. Okay. Yeah, he's back and he's doing stuff with AI. We're excited to partner with Oxmic on their OX Python software stack. OX Python's ability to bring Python workloads for CUDA to AI platforms like Wormhole and Blackhole is great for developer portability and ecosystem expansion. It aligns with our goal of letting developers open and own their entire AI stack. Jim Keller said this, the CEO of Tens Torrent. Oh, man. NVIDIA needs to watch out. NVIDIA needs to watch out. Remember, the more powerful you become, the more enemies you get. Oh, man. That said, Oxmic's strategy will be licensing first model. Okay, well, that obviously means it is not for the gamers. If anytime somebody mentions licensing, this is not for the gamers, which will offer its IP licenses to others. Yeah, so this is all about... so what are they doing? They're doing like a cloud... They're going to build some kind of GPU stack, hardware. They're going to throw it in a cloud data center and rent it out to like OpenAI or somebody. They have raised $20 million in seed funding from companies like MediaTek. Remember, MediaTek sometimes plays both sides. MediaTek teamed up with AMD to create networking stuff for like their chipsets. So the Wi-Fi 7 in a lot of those Ryzen motherboards, that's using MediaTek. And it will be interesting to see. They've also teamed up with NVIDIA on some projects in the AI space too as well. I have a feeling all of this is going to require liquid cooling. Liquid cooling is slowly moving into the data centers, which means you're going to get more stuff like that awesome Silverstone liquid AIO that I've got for Threadripper. That is the sort of thing that goes into a data center, except it's not using like a heat exchanger or something on the back of the rack. But that's the kind of stuff that we're going to see from these guys in terms of the cooling required for what they're building. So this is what he's been doing and what he'll continue to do. I don't know, man. We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see what he does now that he's literally completely like on his own, unhinged from what people told him or wanted him to do from Intel as well as AMD. Because I'll be honest, Raja, in my opinion, doesn't have the best track record, but I think that he might have ended up being the scapegoat in a lot of cases over the years. Meaning, when he left AMD, they were not in a good spot. He basically jumped ship after Vega failed to meet expectations. So Vega 64, Vega 56, that came out. He was in charge of that launch. He was also in charge with the Polaris launch the previous year, which was the RX 480, and that was actually a successful launch. So he did successfully launch, and market the RX 480 under his leadership. That was actually quite successful. The problem was NVIDIA was just way too strong. The 10 series, they fired back with the GTX 1060. The RX 480 was arguably better value than the GTX 1060 because you were getting 8 gigs versus 6 gigs, or 4 gigs versus 3 gigs. And they were basically the same performance, plus or minus 5% depending on the game. Some games the AMD was faster, some games NVIDIA was faster. So like for example, if you were playing Battlefield 1 back in 2016, the Radeon RX 480 was faster than the GTX 1060 because the Frostbite engine that Battlefield uses heavily favors AMD for some reason. And the same thing with Call of Duty. Call of Duty has always favored Radeon for some weird reason. So those were some projects that he led successfully. Then Vega came out a year later, and it failed to impress because the 1080 Ti launched with Ryzen, and that was like in March of that year. Then you had to wait. If you were waiting for Radeon and you skipped the 1080 Ti because you wanted to get the Radeon card, you waited all the way until July or August of that year just to see a card that comes out, uses more electricity than the 1080 Ti, but it's only as fast as last year's GTX 1080. So that was not a good look, and that really hurt Raja's reputation to some degree because he was the guy that was leading Radeon. It was literally called RTG, Radeon Technology Group. He coined that phrase, the RTG group within AMD. And then after that, he went on a sabbatical and then he was out. That was it. He left at the end of like 2017. He was out of there. And then it was announced, I think like 2 months later, that Raja was joining Intel to lead the creation of a new Intel GPU. So we got to go to Paint and look at this time frame because this is an interesting time frame of this Raja Koduri. So let's go to Paint, everyone's favorite. So we have 2017 or 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. Okay. So 2016, Polaris. So you had RX 480 and then the other ones. So he launched the RX 470. He launched those in 2016. And they were good. They were good. What did NVIDIA do? This, that, this. So AMD had a problem. AMD had a problem. They didn't have anything. They had nothing that could compete with this. They had nothing that could compete with that. They had this competing with this. So there was a problem. But they priced it appropriately. This was like $200, $250 or something. I think I paid like $240 for mine. That was the special one that had the XFX backplate. Blower style. Then in 2017, this came out with the Ryzen. And then also, you had Vega 64, Vega 56. But this, oh, and you also had, you had refresh. You had a refresh. These. Basically, these guys were copy-pasted over here. So you had a refresh. And then you had this competing with this, and this competing with this. So again, NVIDIA, it basically nothing, the narrative didn't change at all because NVIDIA still had some GPU that AMD had like nothing to compare to. And then he left the company. And then AMD kind of like lost their way for, well, basically AMD had to go to King Kai and train in the other world for the battle with the Saiyans. Because remember, the Saiyans were these guys. RTX 3080, RTX 3090, RTX... This guy wasn't even in that year, I think. Something like that. 2020. You had those boys. But all the big stuff came out. RX 6800 XT. RX 6800. And finally, the Goku GPU. RX 6900 XT. No one expected this. This was... I remember when people were saying, wait for Navi. Do you guys remember the wait for Navi memes? Wait for Navi. This thing was a big dud. Wait for Navi. Wait for Navi. Then it was wait for Big Navi. Wait for Big Navi. It was wait. Then there was Navi. Then there was Big Navi. Then there was the biggest Big Navi. I'll never forget the memes. There was Navi, Big Navi, and biggest. That's not right. Navi was this one. Yeah, there was this guy. I almost forgot about him. In 2019 with Zen 3 or Zen 2. He launched with Zen 2 in the summer. Yeah. You had this guy. You had Navi. Yeah, Navi. And then people were like, oh, the Navi. And then you had over here, 2018. 2018. You had all these things. You had this stuff in 2018. You had that. 2019. You had this. I remember the Navi memes. Because it was like, oh, wait for Navi. Because this came out, then this stuff came out, and then people saw this, and they were like, man, $1,200 for Founders Edition, get out of here. Wait for Navi. So everyone was like, wait for Navi. Okay, wait for Navi. Wait for Navi. Everyone was waiting for Navi. Then Navi comes out, and it's like, okay, it's here. It's like, doesn't change the narrative. So it's like, So that was it. The Navi. Then it became wait for Big Navi. Then something called the pandemic happened at the start of 2020, and no one could go anywhere. And that messed up everything. And that's why this is the year where it's like, remember trying to buy these things. So at the end of the year, then there was RTX 3080. RTX 3080 came out. You try to buy one on launch day, sold out instantly, didn't stand a chance. The website went from coming soon, bestbuy.com literally went from coming soon to sold out. You refresh the browser, it went from coming soon, top of the hour hits, sold out. All the bots beat you to it. So that was the RTX 3080. Yeah, Radeon 7 was at the beginning of that year, though. The Radeon 7 was February 2019. 5700 XT was July 7th, 2019, alongside Zen 2. Zen 2. The first PCIe Gen 4 chipset, X570, and the Ryzen 3000, launched with the 5700 XT and the 5700 on the exact same day, July 7th, 2019. Radeon 7 was like February, I think it was like February 7th, 2019. I don't know. I think it was February. So Radeon 7 was kind of thrown out there, and Radeon 7 is notable. AMD did a lot of weird stuff that year because Radeon 7, world's first 7 nanometer GPU. This is one of those Who Wants to Be a Millionaire trivia questions. Which of the following was the world's first 7 nanometer GPU? A, the GTX Titan. B, the Radeon 7. C, the RTX 4090. Or D, the HD 7970 gigahertz edition. This is one of those Who Wants to Be a Millionaire questions. And it's like, do people want to use their AT&T Lifeline? You need to phone a friend? Because we all know, everyone who watches this live stream knows the answer to this. Everyone knows the answer to this. The Radeon 7. Congratulations, the Radeon 7. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? The correct answer is the Radeon 7. The world's first 7 nanometer GPU. That would be B, the Radeon 7. So anyway, that was 2019. That was kind of a weird year because it was like the year. This was like the last year of normal life for a lot of people. The world would change. This is the demarcation line, the boundary line. Because after 2019, I think there was the Mayan calendar ended in, that might have been a while back. I forget when that was. But I remember people were like, oh, it's the end of the world. And it's like, well, COVID happened and people were like, maybe there was some truth in that statement about the end of the world in 2019. At least for a while. There was like all this weird. I remember people lining up at a Costco to buy toilet paper, and the lines were so long, and people were trying to sell masks and toilet paper on eBay for big, big profits. Crazy times. Then you had the scalpers trying to sell 3080s for profit on eBay. So the world got real messed up after 2019. Just saying. So anyway, 5700 XT. Yeah, that was 2019. But anyway, all this stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like, Raja Koduri left the company at the end of 2017, which means he basically left here. This is Raja's era at AMD. That was Raja's era in AMD. So after this time, after this, he went to Intel. And he was at Intel for 5 years. Or actually, no. No, more than that, like 6 years. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh no, I was right. 5 years. 5 years. Yeah, that's right. So he was there. And then he left here. Because of what happened in 2022. In 2022, there was a GPU called RTX 3090 Ti. The RTX 3090 Ti. RTX 3090 Ti launched first in 2022. The 3090 Ti. Then there was, later in the year, there was also some other stuff. 6950 XT. RX 6750 XT. And RX 6650 XT. So there were these cards in the first part of that year. And Raja knew that they had an Intel graphics card that has to come out that year because they had reached the end of the 5-year cycle. So, Radeon 7 was not Raja's design. There was actually another guy, I forget his name. He left AMD right before they launched. He left like right after Raja. Raja probably knew of Radeon 7, but he didn't want it to go to market. He didn't want it to go to market. There was this other guy at AMD that wanted them to release the Radeon 7, but Raja said no. Then Raja left. Then that guy said, release the beast. And then he left. And then they basically did bring it to market like 2 or 3 months after he left. So that's the story of Radeon 7. Radeon 7 has a really, really weird story, but we're not going to go there right now. So RTX 3090 Ti, 6950 XT, all those boys. Then later on in the year, you had something called RTX 4090, RTX 4080. And then you had some other things called the RX 7900 XTX, RX 7900 XT. You had all these cards. And on the exact same day that the 4090 launched, Intel finally launched the project, the GPU that Raja had been working on for 5 years, or almost 5 years, because the reality was this was done within 5 years. It was probably done in like 4 years, but the go-to-market was basically 2022. And they kept postponing it. They postponed it like 2 or 3 times. And then finally it came out with the Arc A750. So you had these GPUs from Intel finally launching, and then Raja left Intel. So the point that I'm making is I'm not super impressed. I mean, I would say he did what he could with the resources he was given. But one thing that I have heard from people in industry is that Raja would ask for more resources, typically like monetary budget, so he could hire more people or do whatever. And the higher ups didn't want to do it because they weren't seeing results that would match up with what their expectations were, or something along those lines. So he was kind of budget constrained, and there's two different opinions on this. Some people think that he just was not effective, and I don't really know if that's a fair assessment, because the guy is a very smart guy, but he's asking for more resources. And the people above him are saying, no, you got to make do with what you have, because this is what the project outline was in the beginning. So he wasn't able to get all that. So maybe if he had those resources, maybe he would have actually built a better product. Maybe there would have been an AMD card that could compete with the 1080 Ti. Now, we all know what happened. Eventually, AMD did have, in fact, a card that could equal the 1080 Ti in the form of the Radeon, or what would become known as the Radeon 7. But we do not know what the time frame was like for this GPU, because Radeon 7 is basically the Vega 64 shrunk down to 7 nanometers, which allowed them to fit more HBM memory. So the Radeon 7 has 16 gigabytes of HBM2, making it one of the best graphics cards in 2019 for productivity, because of that really nice 16 gigabytes of VRAM in a $700 graphics card. Now, what happened to the Radeon 7 was most of the people that were doing crypto, and this was after the crypto market crashed, the people who were in the bear market for crypto discovered the Radeon 7 was very good at crypto mining because it had the 16 gigs. They were never having to worry about it ever becoming too old, so to speak, in terms of not having enough VRAM to fit the DAG file for Ethereum. And this was during the bear market of crypto. Crypto was not on, it was not a bull market in 2019 for the crypto. There was a bear market. There were people that were like down and out. It was not profitable. People were losing money on crypto, so they were getting out of crypto. But the people that were in there for the long run, they noticed Radeon 7 is like a really, really nice card for mining crypto. Why? Because it's HBM2, basically uses no electricity compared to like GDDR5, GDDR6. The 1080 Ti was absolutely terrible at mining crypto because GDDR 5X was really bad at crypto. That is the reason why the GTX 1080 Ti and the GTX 1080 were largely ignored when it came to crypto mining in that era. Because of the GDDR5X from Micron, the crypto bros avoided those two cards like the plague. And instead, they would favor the GTX 1070 and the RX 470, and I guess also the 1060 to a lesser degree and the 480 to a lesser degree. 480 because it was more expensive than the 470 while also having the exact same amount of VRAM at 8 gigs. 1060 because it was not as good as the Radeon cards and it was worse than the 1070 and it had the least amount of VRAM out of all those cards with only having 6 gigs of VRAM at best. So the 1070 and the 470 and later the 1070 and the 570 were the magical cards for mining crypto. The Vega cards are very good too, but they were expensive and they used a lot of electricity, so they weren't super popular, but they were HBM, so they were like magical cards if you had them and you could like do undervolting and power limits, and then it was really, really good. Radeon 7 though, 16 gigs, 7 nanometer, and this is HBM2 RAM. Really, really interesting, unique card. This was kind of like the secret weapon, but for some weird reason, I guess, if I had to guess, what held back Radeon 7 was the fact that it was 7 nanometer. So they had to wait for the TSMC 7 nanometer process to get online. And also, AMD was going through their divorce court with Global Foundries during this era. So things were kind of like up in the air on what they're going to do and, you know, Global Foundries and all this stuff. So it had to wait. And it's unfortunate because Radeon 7, if Radeon 7 launched a year earlier in 2018 instead of 2019, it would have, I think it would have been perceived a lot better than it was, because by the time Radeon 7 launched, the entire 20 series was already on the market. The 20 series is a 2018 product line. Radeon 7 is a 2019 product line. So not only when Radeon 7 launched, not only was it only able to do battle with a 2-year-old 1080 Ti, you're talking 2 years too late, but there's already the 2080 Ti and the 2080 that were outperforming the Radeon 7. So this is the reason why a lot of people don't look too favorably when it comes to Raja Koduri, because they think that there was either mismanagement or poor planning or both when it came to Radeon as a division. And you guys can kind of see how things got moved around, canceled, delayed, brought back from the dead, in the case of Radeon 7 being the prime example. So after Raja left, there was a guy at AMD that was like, we have this. We have the technology to make Vega 64 more powerful and performant than it was before. Leveraging the technique of 7 nanometer of TSMC, we can transform Vega 64. Basically turn Frieza into Mecha Frieza. And that's exactly what they did. But then that guy left the company, I think in like December 2018 or something. And then like literally whoever was in charge, David Wang or whoever was still there was like, okay, yeah, just put it out in the market, see what happens. It's all we've got. It's basically GCN's last stand. The GCN's last stand. That was Radeon 7. And with it marked the end of the GCN era of Radeon Technologies Group. So, yeah. Then they launched RDNA 1. 5700 XT was almost as fast as Radeon 7. And in some aspects, it was a little bit faster. Most of the time, the 5700 XT was a little bit slower than Radeon 7. But in some corner cases, it was faster, especially with newer game engines. So we are we are currently in a 2019 repeat, meaning 2025, this year, which I conveniently left off the screen, is a return of 2019 for the Radeon Technologies Group, in the sense that the 5700 XT has been reincarnated as a modern GPU. And who can tell me what the reincarnation of the 5700 XT is? It is a GPU that AMD launched back in March of this year. What is its name? I call it the return of 5700 XT. But what is its official name? Those of you who are paying attention should know the answer. Nero got it. The 9070 XT. The 9070 XT is the return of the 5700 XT. It is the 5700 XT reborn again in 2025. This is the reincarnation of the 5700 XT. So the 5700 XT, when it came out, it had to do battle with NVIDIA's 2070 and later 2070 Super. And we are seeing that play out now with the 9070 XT, with what NVIDIA card it has to do battle with. But here's the thing. The 5700 XT was almost or about as fast as the previous flagship, the Radeon 7. So we already know where this is going. The 9070 XT is almost as fast, and in some corner cases, it is faster than the previous flagship, the 7900 XTX. In some cases, it's faster. In most cases, it's a little bit slower. Very similar to the 5700 XT. And this is the reason why I'm creating this comparison, because history likes to repeat itself, which means we know what will happen next year. We can substitute all the numbers for next year. So next year, there will be a graphics card called the RTX 6090 and RTX 6080. There will also be a mysterious card from AMD, which we do not know the name of yet. People are using the phrase UDNA. People are using the phrase RDNA5. It is a mysterious character in this story. But if anything like this repeats, history has shown that it is repeating itself again. Radeon 7 becomes 7900 XTX. 5700 XT becomes 9070 XT. So that means 3080 becomes 6080 and 3090 becomes 6090. So you guys can see where this is going. Next year, there will be the true form of AMD's new architecture, which will be able to go toe-to-toe with NVIDIA's best. The reason why this makes sense is because, well, this might not make sense for a lot of people watching this unless they work in product development. Anyone who has ever held a job role known as product manager probably understands the concept of something called a product roadmap. And everything that I have shown here is literally just the product roadmaps played out on a timeline basis. So if we go by product roadmaps, next year, at the end of next year, we will see the true return of Radeon in its full form as it was meant to be. Just like we witnessed back in 2020, the upset shocker that was the 6800 XT, and even more surprising and unexpected, the 6900 XT. So next year will basically be, as I said, the Cell games, to use another DBZ reference. We are currently living in a 2019 time frame when it comes to Radeon cards. Now, when it comes to NVIDIA cards, it's the same thing. What did NVIDIA release throughout 2019? They released the Super cards. I'm pretty sure they released Super. It was either that year or was the first part of 2020 was when they released the 20 series Super. We can easily look that up. RTX 2070 Super. And there you go. July 2019. July 9th, 2019. RTX 2070 Super. So, NVIDIA will do what NVIDIA does. There will be a 50 Super series that comes out sometime, either sometime in the holiday season of this year, or in the first, most likely the first part of next year. It'll probably be next year. It makes a lot more sense for it to be next year, because that would line up with NVIDIA's typical pattern that we have seen play out with the previous generation. That's why I tell people, if you're looking to get GPUs and you want to be on the latest and greatest, you're always going to be looking for Q4. You're always going to look for Q4, so holiday season, if you want the latest and greatest. And it's usually an even numbered year. Now, NVIDIA kind of messed up this previous generation because they delayed the launch of the 50 series by 1 quarter on purpose to dry up inventory of their 40 series. So they kind of messed with the market to see what would happen. And it was actually quite successful for them. So they could do something similar, but I don't know if they need to do that. The 50 series was kind of controversial with the whole, like, the 5090 power cables melting and that sort of thing. I think they're going to finally address that with the 60 series, hopefully. I expect them to do that. I don't know if they will, but I think they should. But anyway, that is kind of going to be where we end this stream, I guess, because there's really nothing else to talk about. I guess we can look up Battlefield 5 system requirements or something. Or not Battlefield 5, Battlefield 6. Battlefield 5 system requirements. Okay, here we go. Battlefield 5. So I keep saying Battlefield 5. Battlefield 6, open beta. PC specs. Minimum 1080p, 30 frames per second on the lowest settings. You need to have an RTX 2060 or a 5600 XT. It's funny, we were just talking about these old GPUs, generations. Intel Arc A380. Oh, I've got one of those. It's in the computer that we're using right now. 6 gigabytes of video memory. An Intel Coffee Lake or a Zen Plus CPU. Both of them are i5 or Ryzen 5. 16 gigs of DDR4 running at 2133 or DDR3 running at 2133. Operating system, Windows 10. And it says enabling hardware accelerated GPU scheduling is recommended. Does Windows 10 even allow you to do that? I thought that was a Windows 11 only thing. DirectX 12 is required. 75 gigabytes of disk space on a hard drive at launch. You need to have TPM2 enabled. Oh, that means you cannot be using any Intel CPU older than Coffee Lake. You cannot be on Kaby Lake. You cannot be on Skylake, Sandy Bridge, Haswell, Ivy Bridge, Broadwell, all those things, Nehalem. None of that stuff will work. AMD Ryzen, you cannot be on first gen Ryzen. It must be on Zen Plus or newer. And you cannot be on any of the old AMD CPUs like the FX, the Phenom, the Athlon, the Athlon 64, all those things from like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. You can't be on those things. It will not work. UEFI Secure Boot is required. HVCI capable. VBS capable. That means you need to go into Windows and make sure you have all those security things in the security panel turned on. Virtualization-based security needs to be turned on. The DMA access, all that stuff needs to be turned on. Everything. So that's minimum requirements. Minimum requirements. All right, recommended requirements for this game. 1440p 60, high settings. I hate when they do that. When they do like high settings 1440, but they don't tell you like 1440 low. Like what? Okay, you need to have, for 1440p, 60 FPS, high settings, NVIDIA RTX 3060 Ti, or an RX 6700 XT, or the current generation Intel Arc B580. This is very interesting. They're actually showing Intel's latest and greatest GPU right up there with the 6700 XT and a 3060 Ti. 8 gigabytes of VRAM is required. Now, the AMD and the Intel card both have 12 gigabytes of VRAM. The NVIDIA card, on the other hand, only has 8 gigs of VRAM. So I think that's why they're choosing 8 here, because it is the lowest common denominator. So then Intel Comet Lake is needed, or the older Zen 2. So the Ryzen 7 3700X launched alongside the 5700 XT in July of 2019 with X570. This was the very first PCIe Gen 4 platform on the market. The Intel i7 10700 launched in 2020, in the first half of 2020. So it was like right when the pandemic started. And it only featured PCIe Gen 3, even though it was a whole year younger than the Ryzen 3000 series. So this is another reason why the Ryzen series was the one that a lot of people opted to get. At that point, they tried to jump on the bandwagon for AMD, but it was really the 5000 series which made a lot of people convert over. These CPUs in general are very similar in performance. The difference is the Ryzen CPU will give your Gen 4 GPU its actual Gen 4 speed. The Intel CPU will bottleneck it to Gen 3 speeds. And then you have 16 gigs of RAM, and it's 3200 megahertz. So this is DDR4, whereas the other one was probably, well, it was also DDR4, but it's slow DDR4. And then Windows 11, and then they say run this on an SSD. And that gets you, with these GPUs, you can either do 1440p 60, or you can do 1080p 80 FPS at low settings. So they don't have anything for like 4K. What if I want to play this game at 4K? I don't like that they don't have that. But anyway, what I can say is that if the 6700 XT and the B580 can handle this game at high settings, 1440p 60, this game is probably not that hard to run, just from looking at this. Unless these specs are very misleading and are not actually representative of the actual performance of the game, to me, if you have, say, a 9070 XT, you can probably play this game at native 4K. That would be my estimate. Or if it's 1440p, it'll be like at a really high frame rate, because a 9070 XT is significantly faster than all three of these GPUs. So to me, this game doesn't look like it's that hard to run. It looks like it is a well-optimized game. Just from reading this table. Now, whether or not that's true, that remains to be seen. But so far, we've seen so many games come out this year that are so hard to run, or they tell you, you know, oh, you only need like a 5-year-old CPU and a 3-year-old GPU, and you can run the game at the best settings. And then you go and you do it, and it's nothing like what they said. So it demands like way higher end hardware. Will I do a Battlefield 6? If I can get into the beta testing, I guess, maybe. I'd have to get access to. I have to like figure out how to get into the thing. What do I do? Do I have to download the EA? I kind of had a falling out with EA a few years back, so I don't actually have any EA launcher or anything on my computer. So I don't know. I'll have to look and see how to get into it. What do I do? Do I just go to Steam and I click on access to it or something? Join the playtest. Let me see if I click that button. Welcome to the playtest. Play now. You have been invited to play. Click to install and get started. So wait, all I gotta do is just install it on Steam? That was easy. You were able to get in right away. What about if I wanted to download the EA launcher? It says it's only 39 gigs. Should I install this on a Crucial T700 or should I install this on a Crucial P3 Plus? I guess we'll go on Gen 5. Yeah, let's go all in. This thing's going on the Gen 5 SSD. Full speed ahead. Starting download now. Okay, we'll probably look at it tomorrow or something. I don't know. So, remember what I said? If you guys tuned in yesterday, yesterday we were streaming Final Fantasy 14, Dawn Trail. I was doing a bunch of like raid stuff. I was just raiding the whole time, pretty much all stream. And I was talking about like what are we gonna cover for the weekend live stream. So the choices were Battlefield 6, Elden Ring Night Rain, because everyone seems to love Elden Ring Night Rain, or more Final Fantasy 14, and I guess the last choice would be Genshin Impact. So it's like those are the choices: Battlefield 6, Elden Ring, Final Fantasy, or Genshin Impact. Some choices, man. All right, here, I'm going to do a poll. Let's see what happens here. Let's do a poll here. Which game should I live stream this weekend? And the choices are Battlefield 6, Open Beta, FFXIV, Dawn Trail. Hold up. What's the name of this thing? Okay. Hold on. The Promise of Tomorrow, or what is this thing? Sunspray Summer Resort, and the last option, everyone's favorite, Elden Ring Night Rain Caligo EX. All right, here we go. The poll is open. Here we go. Vote now. Now's your chance to have your voice heard for which game should be showcased this weekend. There's 4 choices. Battlefield 6 Open Beta, The Promise of Tomorrow, Sunspray Summer Resort, or Elden Ring. Yeah, you love to hear that name. Elden Ring Night Rain Caligo Extreme. Like the Crosshair Extreme. 4 people voted, and they all voted for the exact same game. Wow. Wow, no one voted for Elden Ring. Oh, man, what's going on here? Oh, someone voted for The Promise of Tomorrow? What? The Promise of Tomorrow is going up? 29%? Oh, man. Promise of Tomorrow got some votes. Summer Resorts got no votes. And right now, dead last is that Caligo EX in Night Rain. Maybe there's some Souls fatigue going on here with these votes. 7 people have voted. 71% Battlefield 6, 29% Promise of Tomorrow. Wuchang isn't even a choice. That would have been a choice, but you know what took its spot? You can guess which one took its spot. It was going to be on here, but there was a specific game on this list, on this poll, that took its spot and pushed it down. You can guess which game that is. I'll tell you if you're right or wrong. It's pretty easy. There's only one game that Wuchang is similar to out of the 4 games on this list. Battlefield's only available from the access key. Wait, so why is it allowing me to download it? See, I would have much rather have used the EA launcher for this, so whatever. Wow, we have 24 viewers and only 7 people voted. You guys, this is your chance to have your vote count. Okay, so it's opened on, it'll be Saturday then. Or like midnight tomorrow or something. There's so many people that haven't voted that I feel like it's not a done deal for Battlefield. Like, people could literally just vote and tip the scales. In Elden Ring's favor. Wow, that sounds so bad. That sounds like I'm playing favoritism. Elden Ring Night Rain. No one wants to see Elden Ring. Not a single person voted for Elden. Oh, somebody. Right as the Steam download ends, somebody votes for Elden Ring Night Rain. Somebody changed their vote from Battlefield to, oh no, someone new voted. There's 8 votes. 8 people voted now. That's a new vote. Okay. Wow. Man, we gotta have more than 8 people voting. We gotta have at least like 50% participation for real. Man. What? People need to vote, man. Eight people voted so far. What is this? What are you guys talking about? We're kind of at the end of the stream, actually. This was actually a relatively short episode of Tech Thursdays. You had to register before July 31st? Well, I don't think they have to be subscribed to vote. I think they just have to be logged into YouTube. Yeah, it could be people that are not logged in. They're just watching the stream without a YouTube login. To vote, I don't think you have to be subscribed to the channel. I don't think I made it that way. I mean, I would prefer if people were subscribed to the channel. You didn't do it before, what? What do you have to register for? Like, why do you have... Oh, if you don't register, you can't play the game? There's a bunch of noises. Something's happening. Battlefield 6 open beta. Why is the audio so loud? Oh, wait. Compiling shaders. Compiling shaders. 60% compiling. 79% compiling. 99%. Ryzen 9 is fast at compiling those shaders. Completed. Even though we're streaming at the same time, all on one computer, Ryzen 9 just brute forces its way through with all those 32 threads. Alright, menu, narration, subtitles, this. How do I... Alright, let's see. Graphics. It literally defaults to balanced preset. Here, let me just finish setup first. Finish setup. I just want to go in. How do I, Hold up. Is there a way for me to just get into the game? Like... Training grounds? It would probably help if I shared the screen. Like, you guys aren't even seeing this. Hold on. It's because I have the browser up. Battlefield open beta. Here we go. How do I... What do I do? Play... Training grounds. Locked. Breakthrough 101. Okay, here we go. Battlefield, here it is, people. Battlefield 6. Man, the recoil on that. Wow. What the? Okay, I gotta fire like way low, I guess. Man, the recoil on that is so... What is this gun? Is this the assault rifle? What is this thing? You took off the sight from my gun? What? Look at the... But see, that's the thing about Battlefield. Battlefield always has felt more like... They're going for, like, a realism compared to... Ooh, they even have the sound dampening on the wall. Look at that. They have the sound stuff on the wall. Okay, let's go out of here like Half-Life 2 style. I need to open the door. Hold up, I need to look at the can't you press control to stabilize the recoil? If I press control, it crouches. You mean like crouched? Huh? Well, this stream is meant for the Tech Thursday stuff, so we will show this on the weekend, most likely. But wait, what? You can actually go out here? Oh, okay, no. I was gonna be like, wait, what? They said don't cross over. Where's that music coming from? There's music coming from something. Hmm? There's like music coming from a speaker somewhere. Anyway. DIY framework desktop be used to play. Yeah, you can. Yeah. You may need to take down all targets first. There's a portable speaker on the table? Yeah, but where, though? Oh, is this... This was like a... Why is it so hard for me to see? It looks like it's a... Yeah, that's it. You're right. But at first I thought that was like a golf club or something. Oh. The music stopped. The music stopped. The targets just come back up. I messed up the speaker. So I shot the speaker. I can't open this. I can't open that. I can't open it. How do I swap the weapon? How do I... Oh, edit loadout. Oh, hold on. What is this? I need the... Yeah, I need this thing. Yeah, this is... Because I was like, how do you hit the ones that are like way out here? They're like so far away. Oh, it's only one. Yeah, Battlefield is more... This game definitely has more like weight to it compared to Call of Duty. Call of Duty feels like you're in an arcade. Like everyone seems like they move so fast. Is that a correct assumption or understanding? Battlefield feels like everything feels more weighted and grounded. Like it feels like things feel heavier. The character feels like the character moves with more like heavy momentum, I guess. It's hard to describe. You know what I'm saying? Like it's got a different kind of feel to it compared to Call of Duty. You gotta go back to the main menu and pick Conquest for... Okay, yeah, we'll do that on the weekend, but I just kind of wanted to see if I could get in, so I can get into the beta I'm in. You guys can see, but I am on the Steam version. I don't know if that makes a difference of whether or not it's like the same server as the people who are using the EA launcher. Should I use the EA launcher actually? This didn't seem to bring up any EA launcher. In fact, if I bring up my task manager, let me see if I can find an EA process running. I don't see any EA thing running in the background, which is actually good. I'm glad there's no EA thing running. This game uses a lot of resources, though. The 9070 XT is at like 96% utilization right now. You guys can see, this is using a lot of power. Oh, you guys cannot see, actually. Task Manager for Battlefield 6 is showing the GPU that I am using is an AMD Radeon RX 9070 XT. We're currently getting like 115 frames per second. I don't even know. We are running this in borderless windowed, so this is 4K resolution. We'll do a more deeper dive on this on the weekend. Like I said, Tech Thursdays is supposed to not be me playing a game. It's supposed to be dedicated to the tech-related stuff and people who have questions about PC builds. So this is definitely way off topic. But I just kind of wanted to test this right now so you guys can see it works really good. We are using a lot of memory. We're using like 34 gigabytes of system memory out of 96 gigabytes of RAM, running at 6,400 megatransfers. This is 4 sticks of DDR5, 4 times 24 gigabytes. And the CPU is the trusty Ryzen 9 9950X with no 3D V-cache. This is the normal Ryzen 9 9950X. But Frostbite is a really good engine. Is this Frostbite, by the way? What engine is this? This is definitely not Unreal Engine 5. It doesn't feel anything like Unreal Engine 5. And it is using the CPU. You guys can see all the cores, all the threads have some work. Some of it's OBS, some of it's streaming, some of it's YouTube, some of it's the game. EA made a point of it to not have to use the EA line. Oh, okay, that's good on EA. That's good on EA. So we have here 3 GPUs. We have the integrated Radeon graphics on the Ryzen CPU doing absolutely nothing. We have the Intel Arc A380, which is actually the minimum GPU. This is the minimum spec GPU according to EA's table for this game. So I meet minimum requirements with an Intel Arc A380, and it's doing absolutely nothing. And then we have a AMD Radeon RX 9070 XT with its 16 gigs of VRAM. In terms of products, yeah. Well, definitely what I'll tell you is the CPU. AMD is clearly the industry leader right now for CPU. You can see this with Ryzen. You can see this with the gaming. You can see this with productivity with things like Threadripper, which we've been covering for like a week now, as well as Epic in the data center. Epic in the data center. Will I be playing on Threadripper? I mean, I wasn't planning on it. I mean, I got the game installed on here, so I might just play it on here. I could play it on Threadripper, though. I mean, I could. I'll have to install it on that computer as well. So, yeah. As long as EA doesn't cause a problem. The reason why the whole falling out I had with EA was because EA has a maximum limit of no more than 2 computers in a given time frame. Meaning, when I went to go launch Wild Hearts on my 3rd computer, the EA launcher locked me out of being able to play the game for like 24 hours or something. So, because of that, I was like, never again, EA. I'm never playing your games ever again. So it's like, if I download it on Threadripper, that's going to be computer number 2. And then it'll be, if I try to turn on the Godlike, if I try to run it on the Godlike, they're going to be like, hey, you can't do it. You can't play the game anymore. So, I don't know, guys. We're probably going to play it on this. The 9070 XT and the non-3D Vcache Ryzen. We'll see. I mean, here's the combinations. Hold up. Let me bring up the combinations. Here's the choices. Oh, I gotta close out this poll. Well, obviously, 14 people voted. That's good. We're gonna end the poll. So the winner was Battlefield 6 by a wide margin. And then second best was Final Fantasy 14. Quite a few people wanted me to play Final Fantasy 14. That got second place. Why are the poll results not showing up? I don't know what happened to the poll. I closed it and it just didn't show the results. Anyway. Here are my choices. Whoa. Okay. Threadripper 9960X, RTX 4090. This is one computer that I could play the game on. Or Ryzen 9 9950X, RX 9070 XT. This is the Tech Thursdays computer. That's another option. There's an alternative option. It is known as Ryzen 9 9950X3D with RTX 5090. These are the choices. Oh, wait, there's one more. Hold on, there's one more. Yeah, there's one more. I almost forgot. Intel Core Ultra 9 285K with RX 7900 XTX. So I'm going to start a poll. You guys are going to choose which computer I will be playing Battlefield 6 on. How are we going to name these? Well, we won't give them names. I'll just put the... Okay, it showed up. Battlefield. So Battlefield was first. Final Fantasy 14 was second. Oh, no, it was tied. Whoa, Final Fantasy 14 tied with Elden Ring Night Rain. And nobody voted for Genshin Impact. Poor Genshin Impact. Oh, poor Genshin Impact. That game does not deserve any sympathy. Okay, so this one is going to be, which computer do I play BF6 on? And the choices are 9960X plus 4090, 9950X plus 9070 XT, 9950X3D plus 5090, or, and last but not least, 285K plus 7900 XTX. There we go. Those are the choices. Vote now. Oh man, Threadripper. Oh wait. Okay. Oh, Threadripper jumped up and then it went down. Such combinations of hardware, man. It's just like how Elden Ring has preset characters that you have to choose from. Or better yet, Monster Hunter Wilds has arena mode, challenge mode, where you have to choose a preset gear layout. Meaning we're not allowed to change these hardware combinations. Meaning you cannot take Threadripper and upgrade it to a 5090. Or you can't take the 9070 XT and move it over to the Intel CPU. That's not allowed. They're fixed configurations. Because I bet there's people out there that are like, man, I kind of want to see 5090 plus Threadripper. It's like people want to see the most expensive option. It's pretty close, actually. Ooh, the computer that we're on right now is in second place now. The 9950X plus the 9070 XT. Oh, it's getting neck and neck. It's almost neck and neck. But Threadripper, no one's voting for Intel, man. You guys, what's wrong? No one likes this? Like, do you guys not care about the Intel Ultra 9? Like, nobody wants the Intel Ultra 9? And the 7900 XTX. The 9800 X3D, that's not high end enough. That's too mainstream. We gotta go with like flagships only, man. That's a good question though. 9800 X3D is still around, it's just not an option. Poor Intel, dude. Like 0%, no votes. It's literally just a bunch of AMD. It's like a whole bunch of AMD. There's like 3 AMD CPUs and 1 Intel CPU. But what's really hilarious is the GPU combinations. Because here you have Threadripper plus the 4090. Then you have Ryzen plus Radeon, Ryzen plus GeForce, and Intel plus Radeon. My favorite combination. These are all hybrid. The AMD plus AMD is there. See, like every single option. Oh, there's one. The one option that's not represented here is the Intel plus NVIDIA, which is literally the most common thing that you'll ever encounter, which is why we don't actually cover it on this channel. That's too normie. It's too generic. We only cover the rare stuff. Ha! No way, dude. 3090 is weaker. Way weaker than 9070 XT. 9070 XT is comparable to the 4080. $9070 XT is basically 7900 XTX or 4080. Man, the X3D CPU is getting the most votes. I'm surprised Threadripper is doing not as high as I thought. I thought a lot of people were kind of interested in Threadripper for this game. We've got 14 votes. X3D plus 5090 is winning currently, followed by AMD plus AMD, the Radeon plus Ryzen, and then we've got in third place we have the Threadripper plus RTX 4090 Founders Edition. And then in dead last we have the 79. Oh, no one wants to see the Intel plus the 7900 XTX. Literally 0 people voted, man. That's for the Intel build. That's weird. That is weird. None of us have a Threadripper. Do you guys have 9950X 3D? I mean, a bunch of people are voting for 9950X 3D. Do they have 9950X 3D? The best gaming CPU on the planet? Toxic's got one. Mark's got one. Yes, but no 5090. See, that's why I think out of all these hardware combinations, the second one, from a mainstream standpoint, although I don't know if the 9950X is what I would consider mainstream. I guess in terms of gaming performance, the 9950X is a very comparable CPU in terms of the average gaming performance from a CPU in 2025. Like, meaning, if you're someone who has X3D, you're above average in terms of gaming performance. If you're at 9950X level of gaming, I would say you're right at the average. Because 9950X encompasses, like, if you average a bunch of older CPUs and newer CPUs, you're going to run into somewhere around 9950X levels of performance. So that one is actually the most common denominator in terms of representing CPU performance in a game like Battlefield 6. And then in terms of GPU performance, the 9070 XT. The 9070 XT is the most affordable graphics card on this list. So it's... I mean, the reality is the 9950X, the gaming performance is going to be like Zen. It's basically like the 99 or the 9700X and the Intel 14th gen. Those are kind of, well, actually Intel Core Ultra is similar to the 9950X as well. So yeah, it is. Yeah, the 9950X is kind of like it's like literally smack dab in the middle of like typical gaming performance for CPUs. So that one, that second choice, you know, the 9950X plus 9070 XT, to me, that one seems like... This one seems like it is the most representative of what a modern gaming PC should do in terms of performance for this game. Meaning, barely anybody has Threadripper, barely anybody has 4090. I mean, quite a few people, I think, it seems like people who watch this channel seem to have X3D, which is nice. That was your thought as well? What, that this one seems to be the most representative of the average gamer? Of like a modern performance tier? Yeah. I mean, because think about it. Like the 9070 XT, this is the most affordable GPU on this list. This is so expensive. This doesn't exist on the market anymore. This also technically doesn't exist on the market anymore, although I think in some places you can still buy one of these. Intel Core Ultra and Ryzen 9 9950X are very, very similar in gaming performance, so you won't even really notice a difference between the two of them at the end of the day. So yeah. And you know what's also funny? The 9070 XT is very similar to the XTX in performance. So, yeah, in some subtle ways, configuration number 2 and configuration number 4, if you do a side-by-side blind comparison, I have a feeling most people would never... it's a coin toss. Like, if I show you two computers, and I don't tell you what the hardware is, and you have to guess which one is this one and which one is this one, it's a complete toss-up, man. It's a complete toss-up. That's why you picked configuration number 2. Oh, Mark picked the second one because it has your... Oh, wait. What? Hold on. Isn't that... Wouldn't that be number... Oh, because of the XTX. Okay, I see. Okay. Well... I don't... Yeah. I think that's correct. That seems like a good assessment of what most gamers would aim to get for a brand new PC, a gaming PC in 2025. Yeah. Yeah, I agree, guys. I do think that config number 2 or config number 4, although config number 4 is using an older GPU, the performance will be comparable to config number 2. Config number 2 is newer, though. The GPU is newer. So even though both CPUs are both from last year, man, no one seems to... I don't know. 0% though, man. For real, 0%. Wow. All right, we're going to close the poll. 14 people voted. That's the same amount of people that voted on the previous poll. So you guys have decided, which means I'm going to have to install this game on another computer. And it's not going to be Threadripper, unfortunately. So we will be playing this game. I have to circle it so I remember it. We will be playing this on the Godlike computer. This is known as the Godlike computer. The audience has voted. The chat has decided. Battlefield 6 will be live streamed on the MSI Godlike this weekend with the Ryzen 9 9950X3D and the Asus Astral RTX 5090, 96 gigabytes of system RAM running at 6400 megatransfers. That's 4 sticks of memory. That's 4 times 24. Identical config to what I'm running on this computer. Because we always do maxed out sticks just because we can. It's supposed to be delivered. That is a great question. Actually, I don't know. It's supposed to come Saturday? That's a good question. We don't actually have the part for the Godlike. And people voted for the Godlike. Let me see here. It says that it's scheduled to be delivered Saturday. Saturday, August 9th by end of day. So, I'll probably be streaming this Saturday evening, like the usual time. So most likely I hope I have the Godlike ready to go in time for this. So far, Battlefield 6 is well optimized. It'll perform really good with any of these. That's what I'm thinking too, because, I mean, from the short time that I've tested it here, like, I mean, we literally just tested it a little bit. This is 9070 XT at 4K with the non-X3D CPU. And it's... Now, granted, we will be playing it multiplayer this weekend. But from what my initial impression is, yeah, this runs really good. This is really well optimized. So, I really need to see... I kind of want to test it on 2 computers. I really want to test it... We'll see. I can probably... Yeah, I'll see. I just... If EA does that stupid thing where they ban me for like 24 hours because I try to play it on multiple computers... Then, yeah, then that's gonna basically make EA look bad. But, yeah. Yeah, if the Godlike's not ready to go, then yeah, we'll stream it on the second best. So I will mark that down. So let me mark that down. So this is first choice. This is first choice. The second choice was this one. This is known as Tech Thursday's computer. This is also Crosshair Hero. This is the Crosshair Hero. Second choice. Tech Thursdays. This is the Tech Thursdays computer. Okay. So that's the audience has spoken. If I do not have the Godlike ready to go by the time the stream is supposed to start this Saturday, we will be using the Crosshair Hero instead with the 9070 XT and the 9950X. So that's it. And then I guess there will be Threadripper. I really kind of want to do what I did. See, this is why I don't like EA though. I gotta look into if they're gonna ban me if I try to install the game on 3 different computers. Because do you guys remember last November we did a open beta test for Monster Hunter Wilds and Capcom didn't care. I literally tested like 5 computers, 4 or 5. It was at least 4. Yeah, it might have been more than 4. We looked at the 9950X plus the XTX. We looked at Threadripper plus the 4090. We did the Intel Core Ultra plus the XTX. And we did 13900K. Now there's a computer you haven't heard from in a long time. 13900K plus 7900 XT, not XTX. The 7900 XT plus 13900K. That was a computer that we tested Monster Hunter Wilds open beta with. But so I would like to do that with Battlefield 6, but EA has to be retarded and prevent me from being able to showcase all the different computers with the different performance numbers, which is very unfortunate because I don't have a problem doing that. I could install this game on like all those computers just like I did with Monster Hunter Wilds so I can test all the different machines. Yeah, I mean we could do we could we're not going to do 1300K, but we could do all 4 of these. We could do all 4 of these. I mean technically 1300K is still around. It's literally behind me. So I could potentially test 1300K, but it doesn't have any storage in it, so it's like I have to like pull an SSD from somewhere. But yeah, so yeah, we could test like 5 or 6 computers. There's another computer here that hasn't even been mentioned. Somebody mentioned it. Someone asked about it. The 9800X3. That's another computer that's sitting around somewhere. It's somewhere. I don't know where it is, but it's somewhere. There's another one too. There's actually a 9700X, which we will not use. That's the one that I used for the memory. A few months ago, we did a special edition of Tech Thursdays where we literally tested a bunch of RAM. You remember that? That was my old Aorus Master with a 9070X. So there's technically that, but there's no reason to do that. So that's literally just a motherboard sitting on a table somewhere. There's no computer case. It's literally a motherboard sitting on a table with no GPU. Well, what I remember is they banned me from like 24 hours. And I couldn't believe that because first of all, why? And so, you know, like it's some kind of DRM. It's some kind of DRM that EA has that banned me from just because I was trying to test. You know what I was trying to do, right? I was literally just trying to benchmark the game so I could make a video. I was literally trying to make a video and EA like bans me from... You know who ran into the same exact problem? Gamers Nexus ran into the problem. But you know what Gamers Nexus did to work around it? Steve literally bought the game on multiple accounts. Steve and his editors and the other guys that work with him, he literally like bought the game and gifted it to like everyone in the company just so they could benchmark multiple instances of the game. That sounds so bad that they had to do that. They had to waste all that money buying that many copies of whatever that EA game was that they were benchmarking. But it's like, I'm a one-man show. I'm not gonna get like 5 EA accounts or whatever just because I want to test the game. That's ridiculous. So it's crazy, man. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's why we had to do the vote, because it's like, it's like, what am I gonna do? Risk getting banned by trying to run 3 computers? Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. What do you do with all your I mean, I need to keep them to do benchmark comparisons when there's a new launch. You know what I'm saying? I'm slowly working on a Threadripper video. But I've been trying to gather some benchmark data that people have been requesting that I do, because they want to see the results on Threadripper, so that's why it's taking longer to do that video. And I'm not even sure how I want to format that video. It's pretty much going to be a bunch of like weird stuff like Corona and things that I don't actually use, so I don't really know how to interpret the results. But hey, if people are asking me to do the benchmarks, as long as it's a free benchmark, I'll run the benchmark for them. The part will arrive. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Well, typically FedEx is the one that's shipping, or is the carrier, or the courier. So FedEx typically delivers before the evening on a weekend. So, but it says by end of day. So hopefully it gets here in time. Otherwise, we're gonna be using the Hero with a different GPU. But okay, guys, that's probably going to be it for this episode of Tech Thursdays. Did we? Yeah, we ended the poll. I wrote down the results. Okay. I've got all that. Well, if it's Hero, it's going to be the other computer. It's config number 2. I mean, you guys know what motherboards these are, right? Like, this one, you know what this is on. The Sage workstation. And then everyone knows what Intel's on. You can't, if you're gonna give AMD the Hero, you gotta give Intel the Hero too. Maximus Hero. That's the equivalent to the Crosshair. These two are sister motherboards. Maximus is the Intel version of Crosshair. $790. What's 790? This isn't 790, dude. This is Z890. Z890 Maximus Hero. This one is X870E Crosshair Hero. So we got Hero, we got the other Hero, we got both Heroes basically. And they're literally twin motherboards. They're twin motherboards. We did live stream builds featuring both motherboards last year. Out of all 4 motherboards, this is the one that I've had the most problems with. The most expensive motherboard is the one that I've had the most problems with. The Godlike. I have like 6 MSI support tickets opened over the course of this year alone with the MSI Godlike. I have 0 cases on the Hero or this Hero, and I had 1 case open on the Sage. And that's because that was last year. That was the beginning of last year when I was trying to make that Thunderbolt video for the channel, but I couldn't get Asus's Thunderbolt 4 card to work with the Sage, even though it had the Thunderbolt header. So I was asking, I was kind of like arguing with the support. It's like, hey, you guys literally have in your manual, It literally says TB4, and I know TB stands for Thunderbolt, and the guy's like, it's not Thunderbolt, and I'm like, so you're telling me TB4 doesn't stand for Thunderbolt 4 for your Thunderbolt 4 card? Then please tell me what TB stands for, because I know it doesn't mean tuberculosis, because we're talking about a motherboard. And the guy couldn't answer me. He literally couldn't answer. So he had to escalate to the next level of support. Then the next guy was like, yes, it does. You are correct. It means Thunderbolt, but this card does not work with that motherboard. And I'm like, why not? It has the header. It should work. And they're like, well, because he basically had to dance around not saying that Asus locked it down in the firmware, which is the reality. Asus locked it down in the firmware, so you can't initialize their Thunderbolt card even when you have it plugged in to the correct slot with the actual header cable. Everything's done correctly, and it literally doesn't work. So finally, they told me you have to use the USB 4 card. So then I asked them, when is the USB 4 card coming out to the market? And he told me, we don't know, we can't tell you. It's an unannounced product. We cannot tell you a release date. So then I was like, okay, so I literally just have to wait until the day Asus decides to release their USB 4 card. And they finally did. It took them like 5 or 6 months. I literally waited half of 2024 for the USB 4 card. And finally it got here. And that's why I made that video in, I think it was like July of last year was when I made the video for USB 4. It was delayed by like 6 months because of Asus, guys. Like, the things that YouTube tech people or tech reviewers or people will never tell the public, you know? But yeah, that's the only support case that I opened on the Sage. It was, and there was really nothing wrong with the Sage. It was just like, hey, I can't get your Thunderbolt card to work with my motherboard. It's your motherboard. It's your Thunderbolt card. How come it's not working? And they're like, oh no, it's not supposed to work with it. Okay. Well, then what do I do? It's like, get the USB 4 card. I'm like, when is the USB 4 card? I can't buy it. Where is it? And they're like, oh, stay tuned. Stay tuned. Okay. 6 months later, finally, it's here. So basically, that's the Sage. Hero, no problems. Godlike, lots of problems. We had boot loop problems. We had, my AverMedia card wouldn't initialize half the time when booting up the computer. I had like weird, I don't know, slow startup, like just general things that made me feel like this should not be as expensive as it is because of all the problems. And then Hero on Intel, nope, same as the Crosshair Hero, no problems. Everything works. So, although this Intel one had a ton of BIOS updates. Like, a lot of BIOS updates. Especially, like, from launch. Well, actually, there wasn't that many BIOS updates at launch. From January until, like, April or May, the Intel platform had, like, so many BIOS updates. And it wasn't even just BIOS updates. There was management engine firmware updates in addition to BIOS updates. So you were updating like 2 things multiple times in the span of like 1 month. Crazy. So, but everything has worked. Everything it works fine. Like no issues, no bricking the BIOS or anything. It's fine. It's good. Yeah. In fact, AMD has had more BIOS updates in the last 2 months than Intel has had in the last 2 months. Intel kind of slowed down the BIOS updates in April, May. Like, I remember it was like when Expedition 33 came out, there was like a ton of BIOS updates for Intel. And then when Night Rain came out, there was like nothing. It's fine. So, Yeah, the Nova's still the best. Like, okay, I've got the Nova. It's not one of the choices, but it's there. You guys know where it is, what it is. It's called Ryzen 7 9800X3D, and what is the GPU? Oh, 4080 Super Founders Edition. This is another computer that's sitting in waiting. This one, actually, why am I circling this? This is using X870 Phantom Gaming Nova. That computer. There's that computer. Controllers on the hardware side. Software camp blaming the verification issue on hardware, and hardware camp blaming on software. What are we talking about? Get out of this game. All right. All right, now we're just kind of rambling. This is typically what happens at the end of the stream. So we're at the almost 3.5 hour mark here. So I guess this is a good stopping point. But yeah, so tomorrow, or not tomorrow, Saturday, right? Saturday is the open beta? Or is it available now? I'll look into it later and see. But yeah, expect to see me streaming Battlefield 6 this weekend. Open beta test. You guys can tune in. If you're not subscribed to the channel and you find PC DIY is like your bestest #1 hobby ever, and you like this type of open discussion, feel free to tune in. Feel free to get subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell icon to get notified when I go live. The Tech Thursdays, pretty much everybody who's been watching this show for a while knows when the show starts. But for those of you that are new, sometimes we also feature gaming related content on the weekends. So typically this Saturday in particular, we're going to be showcasing Battlefield 6 open beta test on the channel. So you can tune in. Let me bring up here we go. So these are the PC specs required. It is open to everyone. So you guys can sign up on Steam or on the EA app and download the game now. Someone said you could play now. I don't know if you can actually play now. If you have early access, you can. I don't know how the early access thing works. I need to look into that myself. But yeah, these are the system specs. We'll be using way over the specs listed here because we are going to be playing the game at 4K resolution because I always play my games at 4K resolution. HEZ saying you can't play now. Which motherboard manufacturer smells the best? Smells the best. You know, I never thought about that. Oh, I think I know the answer to that. Gigabyte. Gigabyte smells the best, I think. It's either Gigabyte or ASRock. Gigabyte's motherboards have that very distinct smell. Gigabyte's motherboards smell like a brand new car. They got that new car smell. I don't know why, but they do. The others don't smell like a car. The others smell like metal. I'll tell you how they smell. That's a good question, man. No one has ever asked me that question. Gigabyte smells like a new car when you open the box. MSI has like a wood, almost like a typical cardboard wood, industrial type of smell. That would be MSI. Asus smells like the type of that metal smell that you smelled when the Chernobyl explosion happened and you could taste metal and you knew it was the end of your life was pretty much over. That's the Asus smell. I don't know, man. It's a weird smell. It's the smell of like metal. Asus smells like the metal from the Chernobyl explosion. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but that's the only thing that comes to mind. MSI has this like cardboard, really distinct cardboard, plasticky, industrial smell. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. Oh, wow, Wyatt sent gift memberships. Wow, dude. Appreciate that. Wow, you gifted like 10. This is the first time someone gifted that many memberships on a Tech Thursdays. Wow. Much appreciated. I think the channel, the people watching are probably thrilled. Irradiated air. Yeah, that's the Asus smell. It's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's not actually irradiated. I would hope not. I don't think I would be here if I was smelling irradiated air from Asus's motherboard. Wow. Yeah. And then ASRock. ASRock, I gotta think about that, because ASRock smells kind of like, they have that cardboard smell, but they also have this like vinyl smell. It's got this vinyl and cardboard smell. You know what I mean? Like, does anyone know what I mean by that? Like, does anyone know what vinyl smells like? I don't know if that's a really good description. It smells like vinyl. ASRock. So ASRock's got the vinyl smell. Asus has the the metal smell, the Chernobyl metal smell. If anybody's watched the Chernobyl miniseries from HBO, you guys ever watch? That is it's a very depressing thing to watch, but it is a very fascinating thing to watch. So I highly recommend watching the Chernobyl miniseries. It's like 5 episodes long. It is fascinating, but in the first episode where the explosion happens, a lot of characters have this one saying. They're like, "Do you taste metal? Do you smell that? It smells like metal." It's like, that's the Asus motherboard smell. And that's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. That's just how it is. Someone asked me what it smells like, so that's how it smells. It's a very distinct smell. They all smell slightly different. On time to cure. Now you're making it sound like it's cured meat. Yeah, dude, the Chernobyl series is good. It's highly recommended, man. For anyone who has not watched it, go and watch it, and then you'll understand what I mean by the Asus metal smell. And that's a great place to end the stream. So for those of you that are new to the channel, thoughts on fish tank cases? I personally don't like them. From a practical standpoint, they're not good. From a visual standpoint, they're okay. But I'm the type of person who builds computers for practicality. So I always tend to favor air cooling where possible and only liquid cooling when necessary. And when it comes to airflow, you can't beat the traditional directed airflow of either front to back or like bottom up. And front to back typically is better than bottom up, because unless your case is really high up off the ground and the intake fans on the bottom of the case are able to get enough air. In fact, we can kind of illustrate this. So let me just delete all these guys here, or at least go back here. So if you have a computer case like this, we're looking at it from the side. If you have your case, here's like a desk or the floor or whatever. Let's just say it's on a desk. This sort of airflow. So airflow this way, in and out, this is always going to be better than like this, the chimney style. And the reason why front to back is better than down up, bottom up airflow is because here you're never going to get the same amount of pressure for airflow pressure. Your CFM is always going to be worse because the fans that are here, they're not, especially you have a radiator down here, but most people don't have a radiator down here. The fans here, because they're in such close proximity to the table or the floor, or worse, a carpeted floor, which is where I personally have my computer, the chimney style is not going to give you as good airflow performance unless you run these fans at a ridiculously high 2,000 plus RPM, which is going to be very audible and noisy, and no one really likes that. So that's why, and if you have an aquarium case, typically that means, you know, your motherboard is here or whatever, or it's like here. Well, no, it's like here. And then you have some fans here that are parallel to the motherboard, which I think is terrible because they're going to push air like toward the screen, like out of the screen, you know, toward the side panel. And then the idea is that the air would kind of like disperse and go this way because you have an exhaust fan over here, or you have top fans up here which are pushing air out this way through the AIO. The problem is this sort of air disperses at a slower rate compared to if you had traditional fans at the front that push the air. They inject the air into the case from the front because they're not impeded here. They can draw air from a very wide open area. So the CFM and the pressure of air flow will be better than trying to do this as an alternative. And the parallel thing is terrible in my opinion, but most people do the parallel on the fish tank plus the intake fans down here, so they have like this going like that, and then they have this stuff kind of bouncing around and going here, and then eventually going out or going out this way. To me, that is way more turbulent than your traditional rear exhaust, front intake. So you got front intake, rear exhaust, and then top exhaust if you have an AIO. This to me is still the best performer for airflow. And if people are doubting me, those people probably have never worked in the enterprise market and they don't know how data centers are structured. Because the traditional, what I can tell you is the traditional case design of front intake, rear exhaust, and possibly top exhaust, this almost follows what exists in a server environment where you have, so now let's talk about the server. So on a server, you have the same kind of thing. Like, let's say we have let's say we're looking at a server from top down. Or, okay, let's say we're looking at it from the top. We take the top of it off, we're looking down at the motherboard. The motherboard is going to be this long thing, and you're going to have typically two CPUs, typically two AMD EPYC CPUs, dual socket, or Intel Xeons, if it's an older design. And then you have all your RAM. You've got like 12 memory sticks or whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just I don't know. This is not drawn to scale. I'm just going to draw lines. You got memory sticks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So you have like 24 sticks of memory. And you have two EPYC CPUs. We're literally looking at the motherboard from top down because we're looking at as though we're looking down at the server from the top of the server. The front intake, the fans are going to be here, typically, you got fans all around here. You got your fans. You have your SSD storage is going to be like here or whatever. You got all kinds of storage stuff. This is all like hard drives or 2.5-inch hard drives or SSDs or whatever. NVMe, U.2, U.3, whatever. And then in the back, you have your GPUs. If you're doing AI, you've got your double slot GPUs, in the back. You can do like 8 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You got 8 GPUs in the back. So the thing is, the air comes in this way. It goes through the fan. It goes across the CPUs. It goes across the GPUs. It goes out the back. Front to back. Very simple stuff. None of this parallel bouncing off a wall and dispersing it. No. It's straight front to back. This is how it's done in the industrial, the enterprise, the server, the top of the top, the S tier, top of the hierarchy, Epic CPUs, Xeon CPUs. That is how they do it. Front to back. Or in some cases, well, no, and pretty much in all cases, front to back airflow. I was going to say back to front airflow, but that's actually for the top of rack switch in some cases. But no, so typically it's like this. So I'm someone who believes that if this is the enterprise way, if this is how they do it in the professional world, if you have a desktop computer, you want to mimic this behavior because they do this for a reason. It's called fluid dynamics. It's the way physics particles move and how do you optimize it. So the traditional case where your front intake fans intake the air and they exhaust it out the back and the top, that is the style of computer case that I always go with, not fish tanks. So we'll probably never feature a fish tank build on this channel because I just don't believe that those things are practical. But some people don't care about practical, so I get it, but that's all. In my opinion, fish tank, I don't recommend them. They look cool, but they're not good. They're not good. And probably most of those Intel CPUs that died, those 13, 14 gen CPUs that died, they probably were in fish tank cases, I would guess. Maybe not, because it died due to a voltage problem rather than an overheating problem. But who knows? So anyway, good question. Good question. But man, a bunch of people were gifted memberships to the channel, so I wasn't expecting that. So thanks again for that. I think a lot of the people, some of the people at least, I recognize some of the names of some of these guys that were gifted the membership, so I know that these are a lot of my regular viewers. So I think they're pretty thrilled to be given the membership or gifted the membership. So thanks again. HEDT saying everyone will have access this Saturday, August 9th. All right, so depending on if I get my Godlike ready to go on Saturday, we will be featuring that. If not, then expect me to be using the other computer. Either way, we'll be covering Battlefield 6 in depth this weekend. So if you are free to tune in, at least for a little bit, you can come by and see how that game runs on one of these systems. And that's going to be it for this week. That's Tech Thursdays, episode 121. We'll be back next week at the regular time for episode 122. If you guys are new to the channel, do get subscribed to the channel. And tune into Tech Thursdays if you like everything tech and building computers, because that's exactly what we cover on this channel. And we sometimes cover gaming, and we typically showcase specific games on the weekend. So tune in for that if you are available. And otherwise, I'm going to get on out of here. Thank you all for tuning in, as always, and I will catch you guys next week on Tech Thursdays. Until then, take care, and I will see you then. Thanks.